32 minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Surlana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence. And remember, it's Spaceboy's Universe, and you're in it.
Greetings and salutations, I am Spaceboy. She is Surlana, and this is Spaceboy Universe. It is January 28, 2017, I believe. I'm sorry, I've been in a time machine. As always, follow us on Twitter. That's at the SBU Universe. Follow Surlana at Surlana, and me, Spaceboy, at Spaceboy Music. Also, don't forget to follow the network, and that's at the SBUN. As always, if you want to tweet with us, you can do so by going to hashtag SBUniverse. That's our hashtag for that. And then, of course, what do you call yourselves when you listen to Spaceboy Universe? That's a Space Cadet. Lucky. Oh, thank you very much. So, yeah, it's called hashtag Space Cadet. So make sure to include those hashtags in your comments on SBU and all the universe. And hang out with all the Space Cadets by going to spaceboyuniverse.com, click the dancing chat bubble, and in the player you will get in with all the cool kids. In addition to Twitter, you can find the universe on Facebook, Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. Just look for Spaceboy Universe. You know, speaking for Spaceboy Universe and YouTube, you can find more than the Spaceboy archive of shows, and that means that you can find video content of interviews, 2-bit gamers, and so much more. Can't catch the show live? No problemo. Take the SBU on the go with you via Spreaker, SoundCloud, and iTunes, because, man, do we love to broadcast. And so before we get things started off, let's go ahead and put into this week's interview. So,
right out of the fog.
And right now on the broadcast line, we have the next edition of First.
Founded in 1989 and based in Manchester, New Hampshire, First is a 501 not-for-profit public charity designed to inspire young people's interest in participating in science and technology and motivate them to pursue education and career opportunities in the STEM field. Join Spaceboy Universe as we cover the 2017 First Robotics Competition.
Jim, it's good to hear from y'all again. And what week is this in the competition?
This is week 3 of the build season. Competition season hasn't started yet. Our kickoff was exactly 3 years ago today, or 3 weeks ago today.
And we were there last week, and we got to see firsthand what the build is like. That was really fun for us, and we got to meet almost everyone on the team. And so have you had, the team had any challenges with the build or that they've been able to overcome, or everything going smoothly? Typical challenges we would expect in the first few weeks. We're just trying to wrap our head around the game, understand the rules, and kind of figure out a strategy. David, how have you been handling that stuff?
Well, I've been bouncing around. First, I was fixing the shooter mechanism for the balls, which they copy on the game. I mean, it's a little low fidelity, but it's the prototype. I mean, it's going fine. Well, that's great. I know when you have a challenge like that, and it can get frustrating, but it sounds like you're able to overcome it. Are you able to solve that together as a group, or do you get much input from the coaches, or? Yeah, it's both. We're all working as a team, and we try how to overcome the challenge and see how we can fix it. But it usually works, and when it works, it's pretty good because it's something that you made work and something that you can feel that it's real reliable when you go play the game.
David, how do you feel about things, how they're going so far?
One of the things we're working with is a new chassis, and so we're just some growing pains, learning a new build with a new drivetrain. But overall, it's actually going very well there. They are going to start working on assembling that and then setting up a platform to start building the hopper and grabbing mechanism and things like that. So new, but fun and exciting on those fronts.
Looking ahead, how much work do you have to look forward to on this?
A ton. Quite a bit. But we're getting parts in pretty regularly, so we try to keep moving forward and not have any wasted time.
Well, that's good to hear that there's not been a delay in parts, because I can imagine that would be problematic if something like that came up.
Admittedly, sometimes they're slow to come, but we end up getting them.
And as far as your parts are concerned, where do you get your parts for various things?
We've got several vendors that are commonly used by most first teams. One of them is AndyMark, AndyMark.com. It is a company that was actually started by two former first high school students. After they graduated, they started their own business, and they've been going at it now for probably pushing 20 years with that company. And it's 90% first teams buying from them, but they're available to anyone to buy. We buy a lot from a company called VexPro.com. Get a lot of things from McMaster-Carr, just typical industrial supply things. I just got back from Home Depot buying some tools and parts there. We get parts all over the place. Due to the rules were a bit more constraining, and now we can use pretty much anything we can dream up to put on the robots. The motors are limited, but all the other hardware is, we can kind of be creative and come up with whatever we can get to solve the challenge.
And Jim, what do you and other coaches get out of being involved in this competition with the young men and women?
I get very tired.
You keep coming back, don't you?
It is fun. I do it because it's still fun for me. I come back to this build season every year, and yeah, sure enough, we get tired and we get wore out, and sometimes even burn out toward the end of the season. But ultimately, it's fun. I'm a gearhead. I like building these things. I like working with the students, teaching them, making them better, seeing them graduate and go on to big things in college. It is, in some aspects, it is selfish fun. I'm really getting a lot out of it, but it's also kind of neat to watch the students grow and get good at these things.
And what do you know what they get out of it, the students?
What do you think, David? What do you get out of it?
You get a lot of hands-on experience. When you go on the team, there's more than one thing you can do. You could either work on the robot, you could work on social media, you could do imagery. There's a lot of stuff you can do. It's just that depending on the person, what his or her preferences might be.
We have several subsystems that we work on. David mentioned several of them. The hardware stuff, that's the nuts and the bolts and the gears. Electrical is, what you'd imagine, all the sensors and the wires and motors. Software, we're using LabVIEW to program the robot this year. Other teams are using Java and C. A lot of the non-robotic areas, the spirit, the imagery, websites, there's something for everyone in here. A lot of teams even focus on business plan, safety.
Yeah.
There's all. It's a very multifaceted program.
So a student could come, they're there, in their high school, and they learn about Blarglefish, or they learn about this program in another school. What I've learned is they don't necessarily have to know computer programming or how to build anything. That is something, I guess, that gets taught or they learn on the process, that you seem to embrace anyone that's interested.
Absolutely. Yeah, we teach a lot here, and they've got a lot of experience they wouldn't get in any other program in a high school. A lot of hands-on experience, a lot of programming, doing real-world engineering cycles, doing a prototype, seeing if it worked or didn't work, revising it, making a final product.
It's a real world. You've got a model for like the real world where you've got a company that has a product, and every aspect of that product has to be dealt with, from the, creation, the build, the marketing, it's like the social media. So I think that's a really great experience all around.
Yeah, Ian's here working as an employee with the school. Maybe you can tell us how that fits into the school program.
The curriculum.
Well, one of the things, since I do teach computer maintenance, I feel like I get an edge on some teachers in that I very rarely have a student ask, when do I use this? Because I can actually tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And that robotics, I mean, they're using these skills that they're going to be using in life. I mean, just using hand tools and things like that, you get experience with. But then once you start programming and dealing with social media and things like that, safety, I mean, that applies to everything. So it's great to be able to actually show how a lot of what we do applies to real life rather than just talking about it.
That's something I feel like my husband and I, when we were in high school and younger, we really missed out. Like, why do I need to know this?
Well, I know that when I was in middle school, they had just started coming out with computers, and like the TRS-80 was
showing our age.
Yeah, showing our age now. But it was programming, and now I look out there and I see these things like coding, where you can buy a small little kit and Raspberry Pi, and just various things where you can start programming. And there's been classes where they've taken Minecraft, of all things, where that teaches kids programming. Or I think the thing is, the lingo nowadays is coding to create things. So I mean, it's pretty exciting to see from when we were kids to see what's really happening now.
Definitely, and especially with the wide availability of Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and things like that, it's neat for people to be able to do their own thing. They don't have to wait, take a Raspberry Pi, add some sensors, and do whatever it is that they wanted to do with it, rather than have to wait for someone and be like, "Oh, I wish that existed."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we use a lot of those same kind of sensors on the robot. The very basic sensor is a limit switch, but we use proximity sensors, we use distance sensors, infrared cameras, cameras are a type of sensor. So we're using a lot of those same things that the Raspberry Pi hackers and nerds of the world are using, and we're using them here and building a real product that's a big 150-pound robot. So.
Yeah, that's why it impressed us, even though we kind of knew before we came to visit you. This is not just some kid's toy they're making for, I mean, this is a serious robot, a weighty machine. So it's no wonder that they get real world experience. I mean, this is something that could be built for another purpose out there in the real world. So I just really think it's a great program. And I hope enough people know about this, that this is out there for young men and women and even younger kids to get involved in. And it's something I wish we had but when we were younger, but, just technology just wasn't there in the Stone Age. We just got the wheel.
Yeah.
Well, that's very cool. Well, Jim, remind our audience your social links and how they can find you and all that good stuff.
How about David? David's got the handle on that, I think.
Both. We have two. We have Twitter and Instagram. They're at 1255 Bloglefish. You can also search us up on the interwebs at 1255bloglefish.weebly.com. And we're also doing a Kickstarter. The link to that, it's pretty big. So you could just go to Kickstarter and search Piezometry or Bloglefish.
Yeah, it'll be one of the top results there. We were lucky enough 2 days ago to get fully funded on the Kickstarter.
That's great.
We had a goal of $1,500. We're at around $1,660, I think, now, or $1,650. And 2 weeks to go, 13 days remaining. So hopefully that'll continue climbing. But we are fully funded now, so that's good.
Congratulations, that's great. Hopefully we helped with getting the word out.
Yeah, I think you did. You guys have got a wide reach in social media and on your podcast here, so thank you for helping spread the word about that and then just overall what we're doing with the team.
Well, we believe in the cause, so we look forward to next week's report. So thank you for being a part this week.
Very cool, thanks.
Remember to tune in next week to The Universe, when we will be getting another update from Jim Fox and the Bloglefish team.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
And what a great network it is, where we bring you fine programs such as SBU, which is every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. You get Spaceboy Music, which I apologize was a replay, but we've been doing so much behind the scenes to make this show so awesome, and to make the network awesome, which covers another show on Wednesday night. Surlana? What is that show on
Quantum
Wednesday?
Hologram Matrix?
Oh, yeah, that's an awesome show.
With our friend Reverend John Polk.
Reverend John Polk. Man, he is a poet.
He's a very nice man.
He is very nice, and
he puts up with us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I think in the long run, in the big scheme of things, I think he thinks we're okay. Yeah, and we treat him right and make sure he's got an awesome show that you can listen to during the week, in the middle of the week. So you got Hump Day, and then it's all downhill from there to Spaceboy Universe Night.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you agree on that?
You never have to be without us if you don't want to.
And, we've been live. We've been doing this show for some time, right, Surlana?
It's been a year.
Oh, it's been over a year and a half at least. Yeah, September.
Yeah.
September is our anniversary date for Spaceboy Universe.
Is that... I can't get my head around this. It didn't matter.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just know that we've been doing this a while, and I'm excited about next month's guest, but we're not going to tell anybody until Sunday night. So you'll have to just check the website on Monday to know what's in.
That's what I was working on so diligently before
we
got in this room.
Tell the audience, Surlana, that we've got some good guests coming up.
I think that will be perceived that way, yes.
Now, we rescheduled the Linda program next month, so that's an automatic gimme. So on the 25th, we'll be talking about Linda Moulton Howe, and so that'll be great. And, because we wanted to do that show, been talking about doing that show for some time, and so,
just to reiterate, she's not on the show, but we'll be talking about maybe some of her best topics, one that one of my favorites, and the second one I've been looking into.
And if she decides to call in, hey, that's great too. But we're not holding. Well, you never know. It might be another one of those Stan Romanek nights where
anything's possible in this universe.
Exactly. It's called the Spaceboy Universe for a reason. So, do you have anything on your plate over there?
Yes, I was wondering when we were going to get to.
Yeah, we are. We're just talking.
Well, you saw this article and sent it to me, and I just now saw it again. And it's something I've known because I've had a cat in my life twice, and we currently have one. You sent me this article. It says, science. Cats aren't dumb. They're just huge jerks. So, according to a study from Kyoto University, not only are cats not just lumps of fur laying around all day, they may actually be as smart as dogs. And I back that up. It's just because you think a cat won't do something or won't learn a trick doesn't mean it's dumb. It means it doesn't want to, because it can see probably sees through the stupidity of your of your actions. So this study studied 49 house cats and their ability to recall basic memories. I'd be fascinated to see how they do that, actually. But turns out cats have pretty good memories. And I guess if you've ever owned a cat for a decent length of time, you will know this yourself based on their behaviors. They like our cat, once you get into a routine, that knows the routine, and if you break it, they're kind of like, well, why aren't you walking over to this cabinet, Right. So it's something we've known about dogs forever.
I was going to say, yeah, it's like Pavlov's dog, where he did the experiment with ringing the bell, and then the dog would salivate when he would eat, and then when he took away the bowl, ring the bell, the dog would salivate and still think that it's food time.
Well, so we could teach dogs to do tricks. That's they learn like that. So dogs are good learners and memory retainers. So episodic memory is viewed as being related to the introspective function of the mind. Our study may imply consciousness in cats. So it's almost like they're saying they're not sentient, but they found out they are. So this experiment consisted of testing whether or not cats can remember which bowl they had already eaten out of after a 15-minute break. Turns out cats have a memory that rivals dogs, especially when it comes to food. That's a no-brainer, if you will. These researchers found out that these cats have episodic memory that's like ours, like humans. And it means cats can hold on to memories and look back and think about past experiences. Just one more spine-tingling fact, because I have been telling you earlier this week, I swear our cat Muffin knows what I'm saying, or at least understands what I mean, because she will do certain things in conjunction with what I'm saying to her. So I don't know if it's coincidence, but there's moments when I look at her, it's just spooky. It's just a spooky intelligence.
You don't feel that's conditioning?
I don't think so, because I'm not very consistent with her with a lot of things, but they're saying this ability to hold on to memories and look back may not actually be a good thing, though, because they're keenly aware that they're stuck inside a house day after day and can only dream about going outside or, some of these other things. Like, they're not probably happy about some things. So what my decision to make her an indoor cat and shut her off from the outside because of the coyote situation, she may not be happy about. That could be some of her acting out all this howling we've been hearing.
Right.
But this study said that cats are receptive to our facial gestures and emotion, and I know that is certainly true because I've tried the slow blink thing on her, and it actually works.
Right.
That means they may be staring blankly at us just because they want to. It's not because they don't understand us. They just probably just sit there like static on a TV. They're just not being receptive, or they're just thinking, you're just too stupid, I'm not going to bother with you. And I've always known that. So this research may have proven cats are smarter than we once thought, but it also reinforces the fact that they're all jerks. We know they probably actually do remember their name, even though they constantly ignore you if you yell it. With this new information, it's completely obvious that cats will eventually rise up and destroy us all.
That reminds me of the show we used to watch.
If she had thumbs, we'd be dead.
What was it called? Cat Daddy, or what was it called? Jackson?
Yeah, well, he called himself the Cat Daddy. Yeah, the Cat Whisperer. My Cat from Hell.
Yeah, that's right.
On the Animal Planet.
Jackson Galaxy is his name.
Jackson Galaxy.
Yeah,
his real name.
Very cool guy, and I like his sideburns. In the sense that he's bald on top, but he has sideburns.
He's got musician sideburns, but they're not attached to anything.
Well, he doesn't look like a jazz musician, and that's somebody thought that I look like a jazz musician because of my cool sideburns that I have, and I don't know how the sideburns with me. I just grew them, and it looked that looks good on me. I think I'll keep that.
I didn't think your sideburns were anything out of the ordinary until you started telling me what people said about them.
Yeah, so I thought
it's
that was
normal to me. I mean,
yeah, well, So I mean, at least they got the musician part right. I look like a musician. Now, the funny thing is that for the longest time, I didn't have a goatee. I used to have just a mustache, and it made me look like I was a cop from Chicago.
I don't care for when you do that.
Yeah, so...
And then you go through these phases where you reboot your face.
Yeah, so...
I'm like, oh, God, I hope it grows fast. Not that you can't do whatever you want at your face, but you know where your strengths and weaknesses are with your face.
Well, yeah, I know, because when I shaved my face, I thought I saw myself on Catch a Predator, and, so... I don't usually go for the clean-shaven look, but when I am clean-shaven, I look 20 years younger than I actually am, which is a nice thing. But at the same time, I do look at myself and I think, I need the hair on my face. So, at some point I grew a goatee, and that, that's perfect. I can hide my turkey gobbler underneath my chin, and still look youthful. So
I think that means I need to get like a knitted beard to wear.
So we go from cats to my hair, and that's pretty
to robot.
So
back to robots again.
Let's go to robots. I like robots.
Just real quick, not much to tell you about this. It's just a quick video that you can look at. You don't even have to have the sound on. It says, "Here's a video of a robot beating the new 'I am not a robot' CAPTCHA." Now, the CAPTCHA, if you go to fill out a form and order something online, the last thing you do to submit will be you have to put in these numbers, these squiggly letters, or maybe it shows you a picture of street signs and it says, put in what you see in these images and type it in, and that will verify that you're not a robot. And then sometimes all it'll make you do is click a checkbox that says, I am not a robot. Well, this video has a robot arm swinging over with a stylus and clicking the checkbox. It's to show you, just kind of like, I don't know if it's like an FU thing or, but it's actually kind of funny. So I
was just reminded of Grandma's Boy and I'm Not a Robot.
Well, you won't repeat that.
Yeah, we won't go further than that.
You have to watch the movie Grandma's Boy. The only other thing I was going to mention was, teachers are sharing their dumbest student questions will have you weeping for the future.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to read some of these. These are from teachers. I say, I've shared this as a high school biology teacher. A 16-year-old student once asked me, wait, aren't rhinos made of mud?
Okay.
Another teacher wrote, private writing instructor. A couple of years ago, I had a student ask me if commas were real or imaginary. He was equally dubious about semicolons, which he referred to as imitation periods. I can't believe this stuff. I was student teaching. I had a student ask where Texas was on the map I was projecting on the screen. The map was of China. So, a girl in my honors science class asked the teacher, and was 100% serious, if ramen grew on ramen trees.
Okay. This is kind of reminiscent of like Jay Leno when he would do, or I think Jay Leno, and I think I can't think of the other guy, the Man on the Street.
How do islands not float away? Really big anchors. He wrote it down. Those are just a few things I thought I'd share with you as a funny.
Well, that's definitely, I'm not surprised in the sense of some of the things that kids are learning in school these days, especially in college. And, that's why I keep going back to Mike Rowe, who has something with, taking an apprenticeship or learning the skill. I think it's a great opportunity if people don't know what they want to do, instead of going to college and burning all that money and going into debt. That might be the route for most people.
Yeah, some people, not everyone has to go to college. Not everyone needs to go to college. It's just there if you know it's going to help you do something that you already know how to do. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a choice. My parents said, well, let's see, you have no goals, no dreams, no hopes, no ambition. You better go to college, so at least you'll have that to fall back on. And they were correct. They were absolutely correct. At least, I had no experience. I wasn't that intelligent, but by gum, I have a BA in English.
Well,
so,
I'm happy that
I can read, I can write, and communicate.
I'm happy that I got my associate's degree, but at some point, I would like to go back and do some more education.
Me too. I would like to finish my graduate program, but it's not worth the debt right now.
Right.
I also don't have the time.
Well, I was fortunate enough to pay as I could go, and that was wonderful to be able to do that educational-wise. And, of course, it gave me a ringside seat to see a lot of these kids that are in college right now that, I was just really surprised. Why are you here? But then
because their parents made them.
And then on the flip side, there was a lot of brilliant kids I did see in college, too, that wow, I see a lot coming from you, or, in the future. I mean, you've got a bright future. So,
like those kids we talked out.
I don't want to paint it in the sense that every kid out there is dumb.
No.
I mean, it's a mixed bag, but I still go back to my firm belief that there should be some kind of apprenticeship or some kind of work program where
if you know what you want to do.
Well, no, I mean to learn a skill, a basic skill. Like maybe it's building homes or
a robot,
of course, build a robot. Why not? So that they can find what they want to do, and then if they want to go to college, they can further it, or they can further their skill set by continuing with the apprenticeship that they started with.
Yeah, I wish I had gotten into something like that, but we're just born in the wrong time. So,
but sad news today. John Hurt died.
I saw that.
Yeah, so it's a bummer that he passed on. But great actor. He was in Doctor Who as the War Doctor.
He was the first person to have an alien burst out of his chest.
Yes, definitely. And I love the line from Spaceballs where he says, "Oh no, not again," and then the thing pops out, "Hello, my baby." Yeah, so. A little Spaceballs humor there. But John Hurt definitely will be missed and brought a lot to the sci-fi community. So I guess, Surlana, we're at the bottom of the hour. See how easy that rolls? Yeah, so you are listening to Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Surlana. So explore the universe after this exciting break.
is author Jordan Root. You are listening to the Spaceboy Universe.
This is K28, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hi, y'all. This is Lori calling from Texas, and I love listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
This is Wendy. I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, y'all. This is Lorelai DeLille. I listen to Spaceboy Universe. Don't you? Tell your mom and them I said hi.
The epic battle begins this Friday. Direct from ringside at Laser Death Melt. It's Bot versus Bot in Galaxy's 2-ton weight championship, where your challenger, Good Bot, will face the reigning champion, Bad Bot. You're terminated. Reserve seating starting at $30. 2-drink minimum, where ladies don't get in free. This is an SBU production. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
Ever seen an extraterrestrial? It can be hard to believe they exist unless you've seen one for yourself. What if I told you I've seen them my whole life, but have never had a witness who shared the encounter with me? Now, what if I told you I saw 4 of them, 2 with blue skin, and there are over 20 witnesses to this CE5 event? My new book, The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, documents actual accounts from real witnesses, many of which have gone on record to attest to this otherworldly reality. Be a part of the quantum paradigm shift that is taking place right now. Go to johnpolkmedia.com to get your copy of The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, on sale right now at johnpolkmedia.com. That's JOHNPOLK media.com.
Hello Space Cadets. It is announcer Savannah. I want to tell you that as a dedicated member of the SBU team, you always want to look your best. Do it in a Spaceboy Universe t-shirt. Get yours at spaceboyuniverse.com by clicking the banner on the website.
Greetings, Space Cadets! Let's see what's in the sky tonight in the Spaceboy Universe. Tonight, in the eastern sky, we have Spaceboy Universe rising above the horizon in glorious splendor. And in the west, we can see Surlana's Majoris, which is visible at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, just below the K28 belt. So keep your eyes on the sky and listen to Spaceboy Universe.
All right, little Spaceboy music going there. In fact, if you want to get the latest album, you can go to spaceboymusic.com. Unique Technique is the newest one out. And you know what is so neat about that album, Surlana?
What?
Why is it like throwing curveballs at you?
Because I'm chatting.
Oh, I see. That's a good important thing. I'll tell you the audience why it's important. For just a mere $10, that's it, $10, no tax, whatever, $10 gets you 17 wonderful tracks, such as that album, or such as that song that just played called Crash. And later on, we'll be playing Unique Technique, the main song from the main album, and that'll be a little bit later. But yeah, $10, head on over to spaceboymusic.com, get your digital download today. So, Surlana, how's the Space
Sorry, there's some new people come in while we were talking,
I was
and I was
say,
saying hi to them.
How's the Space Cadets out there?
Hi, Catalina, Tiffany. Let's see anybody else I missed. I know Miss Michelle had come in.
Mm-hmm.
Tina's back. Of course, Robert, K28. Dino's there. And Bev is going to get 6 demerits.
Bob,
one of our Jameses is there.
Bob, don't worry about me. I hold my own. I'll let her punch me. I got thick skin, so it's all good, you know. And plus, it wouldn't be the universe if you didn't hear Surlana pick on me in some way, right?
It's marriage.
Yeah, so there you go.
It's not a bed of roses.
Well, it should. Could it be like a sandwich and a drink, maybe, or?
Whatever, dude.
If I can't have roses, you know, a sandwich, you know.
You're not right.
I know I'm not right, but a sandwich would be good. So tonight we are talking about underground bases.
Yes.
And
because there's much more there than after Dulce. Dulce is like a topic on its own because it's just shrouded in mystery and, you know,
right.
a lot of rumors and
for some
terrible
time,
things.
you know, going back to our that show on the 7th, for some time, I've always been interested about Dulce. And, you know, it was kind of like going back to when
I don't know why somebody hasn't made a movie out of it.
I mean, it sounds like it'd
You
be
know?
great. That or taking a movie out of, like, Phil Schneider's life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are great stories out there.
Or like a mini series because you'd have his angle and then you have the Benowitz thing. There's so many stories wrapped around Dulce.
Mm-hmm.
It could be like a mini series on Netflix for like a season.
Well, I believe that, you know, if it goes the way of Bill Burns and his show that he had, I'm sure they would try to get it off the air as quick as possible. And
yeah, but if it was Netflix, nobody can tell Netflix what to do.
Well, Netflix just does what it wants to do.
Yeah.
It's a whole beast all to
Same
itself.
with Amazon.
Yeah,
you know, they can do what they want.
Exactly.
They don't answer to anybody.
And that reminds me of, you know, just as a kind of a sidebar for the topic we're talking about tonight, Elon Musk wants to make a tunnel.
You told me about that, and you showed me a picture. He said, "I said, but he wants to make a tunnel to avoid traffic, but is it just for him?"
The way I heard,
I'm building a tunnel because I'm tired of this traffic.
That's what I've heard. So I mean,
nobody else gets to go in there.
No one gets to go into my tunnel and you know, buy my Tesla car and you know, make my dream a reality where I can go to work without any traffic bothering me. Of course, you know what makes me wonder about that is, you know, earthquakes and stuff like that, and out in California, you know, but I think it's just really interesting that here you have this guy that's got money, and I think he's a little eccentric in a way, but to build your own tunnel just so you can avoid traffic in LA. But I will tell you this. When we went to California so many moons ago, traffic is crazy there. So as you know, compared to when traffic is bad here, it's not as bad as it is in LA. And so, you know, I'm sorry for the good folks of Los Angeles, but you know, when you've got 16 rows of freeway like we do here, you know, it's nice.
It's not 16. It's more like
9. It feels like it's a lot compared to the 3 lanes.
Anyway,
of traffic.
this is not the
sorry.
topic. I'm sorry, this is not the topic. We can do a separate data bites for how upset you are about traffic.
Okay, I'm sorry. Please.
There's people here who really want to hear about this.
Underground bases
yes,
is what you
thank
tuned
you.
into. So, Surlana, enough with me doing the jibber jabber.
11 typed pages.
Well, let's get at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
so. When I started researching this, I was looking at web pages and I was listening to tons of YouTube videos on the subject of other people who have been on shows being interviewed about it. And I read over half. I just couldn't get finished with it. And I read over half of one of Dr. Richard Sauter's books on underground bases. He says he has more than one that was on. And I apologize for my voice. I feel like it's kind of catching there.
You need to take a sip there?
Yeah, I do, if you don't mind. Hold on 1 second.
So she's taking a sip over there, and I'm doing the play-by-play, and now she's back.
Sorry. So I was looking into this, and I was equally fascinated / bored by it.
Okay.
So I was thinking to myself, why bother to even look at this? Here's what I think. Okay, underground bases, they're what we're talking about are deep underground military bases, and I'm loving the acronym for that is DUMB, D-U-M-B.
Makes sense for the government.
It's just, yeah. So I've been looking into them, and I was thinking, well, you know, it makes sense to have your defense assets underground, deep underground,
out of sight, out
and
of
out
mind.
of sight. You can't be spied upon from satellites or drones. Some of these installations are heavily fortified to survive multiple nuclear attacks. That makes sense. That seems like a good idea strategically. We'd have all of our intel and experimental craft to defend our country if that's all it is. But the thing I've learned is that's not all of the story, most likely. Most likely, you've got things going on that violate our Constitution, that probably violate our foreign policies, not in domestic policies with other countries. And I'll get into some of that here. So, what do we know for sure? Here's one thing we know for sure. We know for sure our government has the machines that can make these tunnels. And how we know about them, something that's factual that we can find, is because of the patents. And this is what something Souter said: if nothing else, you can follow the patents that have been filed for all this technology, and that will lead you to evidence. Another thing we can't deny is there a large $1 trillion sum of money disappearing into a black budget projects. Also, he had Souter confirmed this too. Now, supposedly there are over 100 underground bases in the U.S. There might be more than that. Now, the largest DUMB is supposedly in Pine Gap in Alice Springs, Australia. It's one of the largest, and I'm going to save that one for last.
Well, let me inject.
I'm not going to talk about that just yet.
I was just going to bring up these machines that.
Yes, please. I mean, the boring machines.
Well, they have standard boring machines out there that are, the typical ones you can see. I guess I hate to say for consumer use, it's business use. I mean, like let's say you need to drill a tunnel from like England to France, for example.
A tunnel.
A tunnel. You would use one of these machines, but in some of these more secretive bases that we learned, there's a tunnel network that spans pretty much the whole entire southwest of the United States.
And deep going further, supposedly from points on the coast out to other countries. So,
and now, and I bring up this the drilling machines because these particular drilling machines that they've been using for these tunnel systems are a little bit different than the ones that you can do a YouTube search for these drilling machines where they move forward. But you were describing how once they move forward, the glassing effect on the walls. This is
very strange. It's something about it's using nuclear power on the drill part, and it is using superheated lithium to melt rock. And when the lithium comes back down, it's cooling off. This machine gathers everything that got melted off of the lithium and puts it back inside and reheats the process over again. So it's like a never-ending loop, and there's no waste they have to, take off somewhere.
Whereas the boring machines that I've seen and researched is that, these big drilling bits are, it circles, and then it takes in this rock and it does kind of liquefy it in a way, and then there's a device, a drill that's behind that takes that material back out that's been pulverized in front of it. So,
and it supposedly leaves this really smooth, glassy wall.
But that's the difference between the two is that the ones that I've seen out there that once as it takes that dirt out, and also as the machine goes forward, it places these concrete, I guess, to circle the whole tunnel.
Yeah, to make the whole tunnel.
And then they fill it in with another filler that fills in the gaps and the cracks to make it a solid connection, which is different from these ones that they're using for making a tunnel system for connecting all these bases and everything. And
they've got the technology that is not being used on public or commercial things above ground, or rather above board, let's put it that way, that we would find out about. So because, excuse me, I'm going to cough and I don't know why. it's coming from my chest. Because we don't know what's going on. We can't see it, or not enough of us are witnessing it.
Mm-hmm.
It would make sense that they're doing secret things down there that they don't want anyone to know about, ever. So that's why we should be looking into this. Is like, there's some conclusions I drew at the end of all this research that I'll try to get to, and I'd like to hear our listeners' point of view on this. Maybe they can straighten me out. So first of all, there's many reports of what goes on in these things supposedly, and that right there begs investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Wild claims ranging from what happened at Dulce, from UFO refueling stations to illegal experiments on men, women, and children and animals. And second is the odd links that these bases go to just to keep people away.
Right.
Or keep people in there.
Mm-hmm.
Or loyal or quiet. Reports of workers being implanted with cranial implants to be activated if they should step out of line or say something. Reports of brainwashing, sending out harsh frequencies around the area, which I'll get into a little bit more in a minute. Third, the links they go to just to fortify it. Now, some of these can survive multiple nuclear attacks. Again, which would make sense if that's a strategic defense thing, but I think maybe there's a little bit more going on that could be sinister. And where would they get such an idea like that? Well, of course, Nazi Germany. When I was reading Sauter's book, he had a little bit of history of where the concept of going underground became, going underground and doing all your stuff under the ground. This was a Nazi idea where I guess once we got in there, once we were winning the war, we got into there.
Right.
The Patton's army saw these tunnels. They're all man-made, these subterranean towns, of course, made by prisoner labor. They were 2 and 3 stories deep, with sections that radiate out from the center like spokes of a wheel. Does that design plan sound familiar to you?
Mm-hmm.
Does that not sound like Dulce?
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, something that's terrible and sinister here at Dulce, of course, the idea, they got it from the ultimate sinister people. There are so many bases. I don't even know where to begin, but I'll just mention that FEMA has 2 of these, apparently, underground bases. Again, it kind of makes sense if there's an emergency. Maybe you'd want all your supplies down there, and maybe you could shelter people, but you have to wonder, again, why keep it quiet?
Well, once again, you bring up a good point here, is that, FEMA, let's take the conspiracy theories aside for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because everybody, when they hear FEMA, they think, oh my God, they're putting us behind cages and all that
stuff. Yeah, they
stuff.
think conspiracy theories straight away.
Yeah, I mean, because, whatever's out there and what's been dished out there. But the thing is that with FEMA, let's look at on the surface on this situation. You have an organization. It's a part of, it's the federal, I'm going to kill myself.
Emergency Management, I forget what the A is for.
Sorry.
Agency?
Agency,
or
something
association,
like that.
Yeah.
So they're designed by nature to help the United States wherever there's trouble, whether it's flooding down in the Gulf or an earthquake out in California or, flooding in Florida from a hurricane. They're designed to go in after the fact and help everybody. But let's say there was some kind of major accident that happened in Washington. Well, then they would want to have a place, the agency, to have a facility that's protected and still continue on and do business after something major might happen. So, we could look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so your thoughts beyond that?
Well, yeah, that's fine if that's what they're for, but somehow FEMA has become synonymous with they're trying to control us and keep our population down,
The FEMA camps that have come up.
Synonymous with concentration camps
right,
for some
exactly.
reason. So, yeah, that might be a subject for a show on its own. There's another one called Raven Rock that is under it's supposedly the underground Pentagon, which is located 6 miles northwest of Camp David. It's an alternate underground command center for the Pentagon, and said Dick Cheney spent a lot of time here. I'll get to him in a minute, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It also makes sense that you would want a base command underground for security reasons. What if something does go down? What if someone does send us a missile over? You're going to want to keep operations up. That makes sense. I don't feel that is so sinister for legit organizations like that. Now, the Pentagon itself is said to have multiple underground levels. Again, makes sense. Would that not be a safer place to get to?
And I mean, plus we're dealing with the Pentagon. Why would they not have underground, facilities in some way to hide secrets or whatever from, the enemy?
To store the important stuff down there,
exactly.
Keep it safe. The White House itself, they say, is a labyrinth of underground tunnels, which seem to go on forever. And I think that's true because wouldn't they want to if they can't get the president flown out and away, they would want to get him down. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that they're saying these tunnels not only go under it, but they'll take him out somewhere else to another location. They can get him away from the White House. So now the Medina Annex at Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, is a storage for nuclear weapons, but it also is a dome, which they say is very deep and very cold with a major NSA presence out there. Now, from San Antonio up to like Fredericksburg, which is halfway between here and San Antonio, you start getting natural underground caverns.
Right.
Do they go all the way to San Antonio?
Well, I don't know personally, but I know that there is a major cavern out there called, I can't believe I just went blank on this, but I've been there many times.
There.
Natural Bridge Caverns, and it's just north of San Antonio. But
but we have
I haven't
been
back there, and ever since I've heard the stories of Phil Schneider and all that, and other underground terrestrial beings. I've been like, I'd like to go back there just now that I know what I know.
Well, that's a drivable distance. We could do it.
Spooked out, kind of thing. And
we could totally do that.
Yeah, and then go to Bill Miller's again. That would be delicious.
I'm sorry, Bill Miller's totally underwhelming.
Oh, my goodness. That's a Louisiana girl for me.
Or Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska supposedly has... it was a strategic base during the Cold War, and they flew George W. Bush there during the 9/11.
I hate to go back on this. My grandfather was based out of Lackland Air Force Base.
Oh, yeah.
And he was in charge of the nuclear weapon ordnance.
Oh, yeah, forget about
that. An interesting story about my grandfather. At some other point I had to tell you, but he pretty much, I guess, took weapon ordnance all around the United States. And as a student of ufology, he was stationed at many places that had UFO high activity. And then, of course, one of the last stops before his final destination, as far as where he was going to be based last, was he was in Hawaii. And
nice.
They asked him, well, where would you like to retire? And of all places, he said San Antonio in Texas. And that's where my grandfather ended up, doing that and stuff like that. So a little footnote for Spaceboy.
You do have some fascinating family members.
Yes, they are.
Of course, the state of New Mexico is the jackpot of all underground bases. There you've got Kirkland Air Force Base. It's said the miners were blindfolded and transported to work on the site during the build of the base. They were always blindfolded when taken to work, and even within the facility itself, they were blindfolded. Los Alamos, which is probably 1 mile deep, with nuclear and genetic research supposedly happening there. White Sands Missile Range, the largest military base in the USA, a site of the first test explosion of atomic bomb. Their underground base there, said to be dedicated to cutting-edge research in lasers and conscious supercomputing. And of course, now you've got places like Area 51, everybody knows about that. The famous Cheyenne Mountain, Colorado Springs, Colorado, very deep and secure, and was the NORAD center during the Cold War, but they have since moved the headquarters of NORAD out of there. Now, if you've ever watched Stargate SG-1, the TV show, you've seen the exterior of Cheyenne Mountain many times because they showed it as like a cutting from scene to scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost always the same, that same scene, Now, they say there is a massive, deep underground bases in Nevada that run all the way to Eastern California, and that's the entire section of our country is connected and run by a multi-federal government agencies, all the alphabet soups. Okay, so what are the tells? What is it how we can, some of the evidence that we have that these exist? We had a break?
Well, yeah, we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I didn't want to start this new topic, but wanted to just backtrack with what you just said earlier about being blindfolded.
You should comment on that.
Well, you glossed over Area 51 probably because it's been like that horse has been beaten to death 10 ways to Sunday. So, a lot of them, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong if you've heard the same thing, but they usually go to McLaren Air Force Base, McLaren Airport, to fly out on special flights that go to Area 51.
Yeah, I think I've heard that.
And I believe they have the windows are blacked out, and then, of course, I've heard buses that have been taken there, or when they get there, they're on a bus, and the bus's windows are blacked out as well. So
yes.
So
you don't drive to work; they drive you to work.
They get you. You get into the thing, and then they do all the work to get you there, so that you don't know what's going on, and then you just clock in when you get there, that kind of thing. And so, pretty much they don't want you to know anything. So if you're building a base like that,
and
I can only imagine.
That's how they have to do it. Is they compartmentalize everything, even pieces of the build. Like you're only going to this section. You're only going to work here. You're not going to wander around. You're not going to ask questions. You're going to do your job. And you're going to get out.
I don't know. I just thought of Sigourney Weaver in Galaxy Quest. You know the line?
I have one job. It's stupid, but I'm going to do it. That's what I feel like with Spaceboy Universe sometimes.
Oh. So it's interesting in the sense that you've got these people that, they are compartmentalized. They are kind of blinded to the big picture, and it's on purpose so that...
And I'll share more examples of that in a minute.
And so as I've filled up a little bit of time here, we're at close to the top of the hour, so let's take the top of the hour break. Let's see here as I look across the thing here, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe, and we'll be right back after this musical interlude. Holy crap, I just bent my finger.
I know what that feels like, but it's still funny.
Well, at least you got some entertainment out of it. And now that
I bit my thumb like a month or two ago. You saw me do it, and it's never been right since.
Oh, well, you must have bit down pretty hard on it.
Yeah, it aches.
Yeah, the middle finger, so it'll feel... It's extra special now if I have to give the bird, so...
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were about to get into the next part of this.
Yeah. How are we supposed to know that these underground military bases exist? Well, we do have some evidence, and most of that would come from people who say they had to go down there and work or provide a service or an installation of some kind. So in Souter's book, The Elevator Tells All. So in the book that I read by him, Souter interviewed a former employee of one of these companies that provided goods and services to some of these deep underground bases. For example, Otis and ThyssenKrupp provide elevators. So he had the testimony of one of these workers saying that the underground elevators they were working on go anywhere from a few feet down to thousands of feet down. And Otis, on its own, is apparently developing a multi-directional elevator for tall buildings of the future. They would, not only go up and down, but side to side.
Mm-hmm. That's very Star Trek-ish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They would also make large lifting platforms, football-sized, supported by screws the size of sequoia trees.
Wow.
So that would seem like it could be lifting aircraft, large heavy equipment.
I was going to say like on an aircraft carrier, but for whatever on land, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that they mentioned was installing elevators is into oil rigs. You put an elevator in an oil rig's leg.
Mm-hmm.
He mentions in his book Alien Contact. Souter says that in the book Alien Contact by Timothy Good says there is an offshore platform in the Gulf of Mexico that resembles an oil production platform, but it's owned by NORAD, and it's not really an oil production platform. It just looks like it's to serve as a monitoring station for the USA's airspace and presumably to watch for UFOs, which makes you question how many of these quote-unquote oil rigs are false fronts. So Salter says when he was researching into elevators, that's how he found out about them being in the oil rig legs, and then how it led to some of these oil rigs aren't oil rigs.
What you bring up a good topic right now is that how would one find out that if you have the typical research. We know where Area 51 is, but there's no chance in Hades anybody getting in there to find out any real answers. So how do you go about finding out the answers? And this elevator thing is a prime example of thinking outside the box. Okay, well, you have a facility that serves so many people. They're going to need supplies. They're going to need, how...
And at least one person is going to see something for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't see how they could unless they absolutely keep you blindfolded the entire time, somebody's going to have to say something or see something.
And this goes back to, you remember when there was the big brouhaha about buying a hammer for $1,000?
I never understood what that was all about.
Well, think about it. How would you be able to fund something if you could overcharge for something?
Oh, I see. It's a front.
It's a front.
I
exactly.
Gotcha.
So, $3,000 for toilets, stuff like that. You can go down to the Home Depot and get you a toilet for a couple $100, so.
Yeah. Or if you're in Texas, you could just go down a neighborhood and see them, waiting by the side of the road to be picked up.
and that's not just one example. That's just one example of following the money trail, if you will.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Go ahead.
There's another video out there. I forgot to mention it where. I forgot the lady's name, but it's a great video where she talks about black budgets and following the money. Mm-hmm. If I find that during the next break, I'll make sure to share that and tell you about it. Okay, so this is how Souter was getting his information, was from people that were emailing him anonymously that worked or saw something or had some involvement. And so the subterranean labyrinth under the NSA at Fort Meade, Maryland. So there's an NSA building there, supposedly an underground complex. Now, James Banford has a publication called The Puzzle Palace, and he says there is an enormous basement that stretches for city blocks beneath the headquarters building that's, on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Now, supposedly, this base holds more advanced is the most advanced computer operation in the world. This is where the NSA uses digital machinery to eavesdrop on all of us.
Right.
So another email he got from an NSA employee, and now you'll get people who actually work in these alphabet agencies that will come out. I'm sorry, it feels like I'm being choked to death here. This NSA employee accidentally stumbled into a tunnel entrance. Now, this is interesting. This reads like the opening of a book or a movie. This employee was somewhere doing his job,
mm-hmm.
and he noticed, since he'd been working there was this nondescript, unmarked door. And finally, he got up one day and he walked through it. And he opened it and he noticed there was a stairwell going down. So he went over and peeked over the railing of the stair, and he could see there must have been 15 to 20 more floors below him. So he walked down a flight of these stairs and he saw another door. He opened that door and just stuck his head out, and he looked right, he looked left, and what he saw was a tunnel that ran out of his sight range in both directions. He assumes the length of this complex to be larger than that of the building. It was the building that's sitting on top of it all. He said in that tunnel he could see there were doors spaced about 30 to 40 feet apart. The walls were concrete. The floors had colored markings. But he didn't see any cameras on the walls.
I was getting ready to say,
Yeah, but he felt deeply uncomfortable. So he, didn't go into the tunnel. So he went down a few more flights of stairs and stuck his head out on another floor, saw the exact same thing, except he did see a golf cart heading his way loaded with people, so he booked it out of there. Now, this account is from the late 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that they've had the technology to make massive underground cities since the 70s. Imagine what they could do now.
Oh, yeah.
So, China Lake, California, has got a huge U.S. Navy base, supposedly. Souter got word from a former uniformed officer that the China Lake base, they do indeed have an underground base. It goes 1 mile deep, and it stores weapons and more. It stores weapons more powerful than nuclear weapons. So I don't know if that's something we even know about. The White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico has a surface that sprawls for many miles across deserts, hills, mountains, and Sauter said that he got some secondhand accounts from someone who was contracted to work at the site. This contractor said he was asked to come to White Sands and dig wells, drill 10 or 12-inch dam holes down to 800 or 1,000 feet. And he didn't think that was unusual, but when he got there and did the job, his drill bit kept breaking. And when he got these holes drilled, all this cold air came rushing up from the holes. He thought that was a bit odd. And as he kept on working, he began to think what he was actually doing was drilling air shaft, not well holes. So, another evidence they have is underground maglev shuttles. And again, I guess the only thing you've got to point to is patents. Now, of course, maglevs, we're not unfamiliar with that. Japan has them for commercial transit.
Yeah,
they've had it for a while.
They've had that for
and don't they have something like that at one of the Disney lands or Disney Worlds? I've never been to either one, so I don't know.
Something like that.
So it's just a high-speed train. But the ones they say that are under the ground are not like anything you've ever seen up here on the surface. Sauter came through this by sort of third, fourth, fifth-hand info. it was like a friend of a friend of a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this one friend's friend said that those trains go very fast. It takes less than 1 hour to get from Cheyenne Mountain to the Pentagon. So that's Colorado to Washington, D.C. That's 2,000 miles per hour. He says you don't feel the speed any more than you feel the speed when you're in a plane that's going 600 miles an hour. So there was some talk, or I've heard about the one in Burlington, Massachusetts. There was a lot of nuclear work going on in that underground base there. But what bothered me about it, it says that the people, quote unquote, were so dedicated to their work there. They stayed even though it was bad for their health because of the radiation. They said they saw people working there missing fingers, hands, arms, noses. I'm just thinking, are they dedicated or are they trapped? I wonder.
It might be a mixture of both.
Okay, there's a whole other topic we could have done, which is underwater bases.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Are you going to mention the one off of Malibu?
No.
Because
I didn't go there.
Well, I just did, so I just dropped the mic. Anyway, but continue, but I would like to just interject a little bit on that.
All right, well, let me read this paragraph
Sure.
and I'll wait for you. Anonymous person told Richard Sauter there is a large underwater base in the Gulf of Mexico, which is contracted out to Parsons. Supposedly, this one goes 2,800 feet below the sea floor, and they built it in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
The source that's telling Sauter this worked for a company that manufactured mining and excavation equipment, and he says there are two more underwater bases, one near Florida and two near here, Texas.
Do you know the location of the Florida base?
No.
I bring that up because of all the different sightings that have gone over the years, and I guess close to a military base in Florida. But
that's probably is it Gulf Breeze, Florida?
Yeah,
that has all the really famous UFO, UFO sightings. Maybe that's tied. Maybe that's an underground base.
Even friend of the show,
underwater.
Reverend John Polk, has talked about some of these sightings that have been out there in Florida, and so yeah, it's not, I guess, uncommon. I guess maybe it's a topic that we can pick UFO Jane's mind about USOs out in the Gulf of Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Is that what you were going to say?
Well, I was going to just elaborate on the underground. The base that supposedly was found off of Malibu. I mean, what it is Google imagery shows this, I guess, thing that's off the coast of California. And really, it made a big explosion on internet radio on another broadcast. But yet we thought, hey, we're going to get out there and we're going to go see what's underneath the water. And then
is it
just
too deep to get to?
It was kind of deep, but you could make submersibles go down,
like an ROV,
And I guess what's kind of a bummer in this is it just kind of fizzled out. We never heard anything beyond that. I mean, although there is an article out there, I haven't really got a chance to look at.
That's a strange thing to look at.
Haven't got a chance to look at is from our good friend Preston Dennett. Talks about, and I'm going to have to review that and follow up with our space cadets on that one. But it is kind of rare, but weird. No further talk about it, and even it's one of those situations hard to get.
A strange looking thing.
Hard to get to.
It.
Yeah. So hopefully Dennis can post a picture of that out there. But
I don't understand what the natural forces would be to create that. But then I'm not saying I'm a geological expert.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's an interesting case, and like many cases that are like, wow, that's interesting. They kind of just disappear. And what happened? There was all these plans, and it just kind of just fizzled.
I'll talk about a theory here when we get towards the end.
Go ahead and continue.
Why that may answer your question.
And thanks, Dennis, for posting that.
Absolutely. So as I was looking at all this, I'm thinking, what is the purpose of all this, other than maybe it's a strategic good idea to have all your defense underground? So, but what is the real purpose? Are they prepping for Armageddon? You know, did they do this to prep in the event of a nuclear war so they could still operate? Are they anticipating a change in the Earth's rotation? A reversal of the Earth's magnetic field?
Mm-hmm.
An oncoming galactic dust cloud? An asteroid/comet strike? Massive sudden climate change?
Mm-hmm.
Social, political, or economic chaos, which is very possible any moment now,
Mm-hmm.
or any combo of these. Those seem plausible, but why not let us in on any of it? Of course, some of that you can't see coming, like the social, political, economic thing.
Right.
But those are plausible,
Mm-hmm.
logical, and I wouldn't blame them for, making that. But why couldn't they just tell us, if those are all above board reasons? But from what my research is we're talking about not just bases with some offices and, we're talking about on the scale of underground cities.
Mm-hmm.
So who are these cities for? Is it for the military that's working down there? Is it for leaders? Are they going to hold a lottery where some of us can go down there and the rest of us are screwed? Sauter also said in his book, he gets approached by current and former military personnel who've seen a thing or two or are involved in things in the military that bother them. So they've seen things or they're doing things that weigh on their conscience within these bases. So that, you speculate what's going on down there. If our military has nefarious intentions, how are we to know? So he talked about a huge pneumatic tube that can shoot a person or a pellet right down to the middle of an access road to Dulles Airport, which I think this is they're talking about. There's a presidential escape tunnel at the Waldorf Astoria that Bush Jr. used. He had a train waiting for him in an underground tunnel behind the hotel. So I'm thinking maybe it's just a quick way for them to get around without being seen. What's under D.C.? Now, do you remember when we talked about U.S. traitors?
Yeah.
And we talked about Robert Hansen?
Yeah.
Well, his scandal when he was outed as a spy busted open a lot of secrets, including a clandestine tunnel. Hansen said, if you recall, he was an American former FBI agent who spied for the Soviet Union and then, when it became Russia, from 1970 to 2001. That's a long time. He got caught in 2001. He had told the Russians that in 1980, or the 1980s, the FBI and the NSA dug a surveillance tunnel beneath the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. And at the time, Cheney was vice president, and they asked the vice president, Cheney said, well, what's all that about, that tunnel that came out with this Hansen thing? And Cheney says, even if there was a tunnel, and that's true, I'm not going to tell you about it. So at this point, I started getting kind of flip with my research.
Okay.
And I started naming my sections crazy things just to amuse myself. So this little section's called Ain't No Party Like a Cheney House Party Because a Cheney House Party Blows Up. Okay, so speaking of Dick Cheney, he made that statement. It's like, well, if there was a tunnel, I wouldn't tell you about it. 1 year after he made that statement, he has a mansion on the grounds of the U.S. Naval Observatory northwest of Washington, D.C. So his neighbors there complained about odd construction noises coming from the vice president's mansion that were creating huge blasts, rocking the neighborhood, rocking the ground with explosions coming from his house, it seemed. They were hearing these explosions 2 or 3 times a day, early morning, late at night. And they complained about it, and they said, we're sorry about that. We're trying to keep it down. We're doing military utility and infrastructure upgrades, but the neighbors didn't buy that due to the severity of the blasts and the shaking the ground that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But Souter points out, when was the last time you tried setting off high explosives at your house? So I just thought that was funny. But Souter uncovered plans going back to the 1960s to have deep underground command centers under D.C., and it was to begin in 1963, just weeks before Kennedy's assassination. So you have to wonder if that's all tied together. It was for a 3,500-foot underground tunnel or base intended to survive multiple direct hits of 200 to 300 megaton warheads at ground level, and to survive 100 megatons warheads that penetrate 70 to 100 feet. Those were a valid concern in the 60s because, that's the beginning of the Cold War, or the 50s, whatever. So, I don't know if that got built or, how that ties in with what happened to Kennedy. But another worker's testimony to Souter, he got a handwritten letter from a truck driver that made a delivery here in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this truck driver, they made him go through 70 miles of a maze underground tunnels,
right,
to deliver to a subterranean loading dock. And another tells that about an underground highway system going from Colorado to Kansas.
Now, I don't mean to interrupt here, but not too long ago, I did see a couple of videos where these, big 18-wheeler truckers have gone into a side of a mountain kind of thing, and it's a bored out, I guess, tunneling system where they drive, and I found that quite interesting.
Well, stop and imagine what we have right here down at I-10, this part of I-10 that goes through the primary parts of Houston. There's 4 lanes and then 2 inner lanes, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 2 inner lanes, one is toll, one is HOV. And then you have 2 more lanes that just like that toll HOV on the next side, and then 6 lanes. How many lanes is that?
Quite a few.
Now imagine that going on underground.
Mm-hmm.
Further, just almost as far as I-10 goes. My question to you is, if they have a highway for vehicles, or are they not concerned about carbon dioxide? Where does all that go?
Carbon dioxide?
Yeah, monoxide and
monoxide. I guess to kind of answer that question, remember how you were talking about them drilling holes and cold air coming out, and I'm
so
sure
they've got vents.
I'm sure that they've got a vent system set up to where they can air out these tunnels and make sure
recycle the air. Or scrub it.
Now here's another thing. There's this underground city in France that I'm sure you've seen it several times, where it goes pretty deep underground, and there was this immense tunneling system where it looked like a whole town could have lived in it. And very ancient.
Oh yeah.
And
City of Bones down there.
Yeah, so they had a multi-shaft thing where they could allow the air to come into, and so it's a matter of just properly venting it, and I'm sure that's what they take into account.
Well, I'll mention this one next part quickly. I know we're about to come 5 minutes to break, but I won't take that long. You know how we like history. That's one of the many topics we talked about. So I wanted to mention this briefly because it fascinated me and I didn't know it. And I keep thinking my education as a young kid was deficient, Okay, the first secret underground project ever in this country. Alfred E. Beach was the editor of a little-known but up-and-coming publication called The Scientific American in post-war 19th century America. He wasn't well known at that time. And we still don't know probably enough because he was the constructor of the first subway line in New York City, and he did it all secretly. And how did he do this? Well, the same way they're doing it now. Effectively, he compartmentalized sections of the build in a black budget type of way. He managed to privately hire excavators to make the tunnel for the subway, and he did it at night under the cover of darkness, and he did it going through the basement of Devlin's clothing store. He invented a tunneling shield to let him construct rapidly. It didn't really go into what that was. The subway line was pneumatic. Cars were propelled by a large fan, which was powered by a steam engine. His invention was wildly popular, and people loved taking rides on it like it was a ride at Disney. But it didn't get adopted as mass transit because, even though it was wildly popular, because they said at the time that New York politics was too corrupt and they wouldn't allow it to go through. It would be decades before it would pass as mass adoption for subway systems. So I just thought that was interesting. Alfred E. Beach.
Very interesting indeed. So that leads us into the bottom of the hour, Surlana. So why don't we take the next musical interlude to regroup, and just to let everybody know, we will open the phone lines here at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time, p.m. So get ready to get your dialing fingers started, and so without any further ado, some more Spaceboy music, and we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Spaceboy Universe. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe, and I've turned your mic down so you can chomp down, Surlana. The phone lines will be open later, and that phone number is 844-734-7286, 844-734-SBUN. If you didn't know, you are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network, which hosts several shows. That includes Spaceboy Music. It also includes our good friend Reverend John Polk, who is the host of the Quantum Hologram Matrix. It airs every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Here, let me turn you back up. 8 p.m.
8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Is it 8 p.m. Eastern?
Mm-hmm,
I thought it was.
Because I just.
Oh, that's right. It's
yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You are the authority on that, but it gets all confusing with these time zones. So support the universe and by listening to all of the programs that are here on the network. And the more we go forward, the more we will make this a network that you want to tune in, regardless of what day of the week it's on. And so we love you all for tuning in. So, Surlana, have you finished?
Yes, sorry about that.
Dining your chips?
Sorry, they're really good chips, and we're hungry, and I apologize. I keep hitting the mic. It's just there's no convenient place for a microphone.
Well,
ever.
you're very animated, like I am, with your hands and gesturing, and when you start getting passionate about what you're talking about,
I think I just move too much. I'm not passionate. I'm just.
That's why I try to keep an arm's length away from you, so you don't smack me down, and
Well, sometimes you need it. Anyway, when I told you about Alfred E. Beach, for some reason when I need to talk, I want to cough. While I was sitting here not talking, I was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Go fig. Anyway, I thought that was interesting about the first, black budget underground tunnel thing from that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this book, Richard Sauter's book I was reading, had a very long chapter, about the history of high-speed vehicles. So I skipped over it because it was going on for a while. And I'm sure it's fascinating, but I was trying to get to more interesting stuff. But I think the reason he went into such extensive history about high-speed trains and vehicles is he wants to build these argument that some of this black budget money must be going to make that kind of technology, and exclusively for that purpose of being underground and connecting all these bases and these tunnels. He believes it's one of the reasons that these bases exist, which is all kind of logical if it's for defense purposes. But he said these underground facilities are there because it is easier to get them made. Now, this is going to answer your question from earlier. I told you, I said, Richard Sauter says, it's even easier these days for our government to make these deep underground tunnels, bases, because the public now is so dumbed down. We don't question black budget projects like this. We've got marketing and propaganda, disinformation, the acceptance of corporate government manufactured pseudo-reality that is believed with little question by a large section of the population. That's a quote from his book. So what he's saying, it's much easier to disguise these projects because we don't pay attention and we don't question it and we don't care, because once you start questioning, it's like, I think there's a deep underground military base and they're doing experiments on people and they're run by you aliens. They're going to call you a tin hat foil wearing weirdo. But again, he says another way to help prove this is look at the patents. Keep looking at the patents, and those people have patented it, but you don't see it anywhere. Where is this machine or this technology? Okay, here's a section. I told you I was getting a little bored with this. This section is called "How Deep Is Your Dumb?" So he was saying, we as the average citizen, are not up to date with the latest technological advances and the cutting-edge civil engineering and marine technology for making these bases. So we don't encounter this technology in our daily lives, so we have no idea how this is carried out, and maybe we can't recognize it when it's happening in front of us. Unless you're very observant or you live near one of these installations, you'll see a lot of big equipment going around, trucks, deliveries, helicopters, even pieces of mountain moving and then coming back down. Odd things in the sky, explosions, booms, etc. If you live next door to Dick Cheney, you're going to see something. So we catalogs a lot of these instances where people say they've seen things that are just not normal to the daily workings of their environment. Now, I listened to this YouTube video, and I got the woman's name, Mary Joyce. She's the author of a book called Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains. So she's talking about, the Smoky Mountain, part of the Smoky Mountain Range, I believe, that's in North Carolina. Mostly Mount Mitchell, which I looked that up on the Google Maps just to get an idea where she's talking. So Mary said she got reports from campers and hikers saying, or they were going around on their ATVs in the park.
Right.
And they ran into rangers carrying M4s and AR-15 machine guns. Now, why the heck would park rangers need semi-automatic, anything larger than a shotgun? I mean, there's a shotgun out there, a rifle rather, that can take down a bear or an elk if it's coming at you in a threatening manner and you've got no other option. But M4s and AR-15s for wildlife or parks?
Maybe it's a very big bear?
I don't know. I mean, are the bears getting, their own guns and ammo? I mean, another report she got was a woman witnessed the side of a mountain opening up, and the opening was big enough to like a tank pass through. It opened either like a drawbridge or like a garage door. And when it closed back, you couldn't tell there was an entrance there, just like mountain range,
Mm-hmm.
They have, now these are some of the measures they do to keep people away from from these installations. Like they have threatening signs, like the ones you see around Area 51, you'll be shot on sight or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She got reports of this other woman, her friend of hers deliberately went out looking for this base where she believed it to be on this mountain. And this woman said, I was looking for this base. I was driving along whatever this highway was, and it was bright, sunshiny day, and the birds were singing. And as she got closer to where this installation was supposed to be, everything went dead quiet. The birds quit singing. There was no noise. And as she kept driving, she got to feel this vibration in her head. And she felt so sick, she thought she was going to have to stop and vomit. So she had to turn back because she couldn't handle this frequency or vibration that was being put out. So those are some of the measures that are taken to keep people away from these so-called bases that are, But he also talks about the likelihood of, like I said, underwater bases. And there was a lot of info, but I skipped it because I was getting pressed for time. But the conclusions were based on documentation he examined and researched, evidence of patents, and a variety of anonymous sources that have been contacting him. And he concludes that the U.S. Navy have built and manned undersea bases, and that they're in the Atlantic, Pacific, Gulf of Mexico, coastal USA locations, Caribbean, and Mediterranean, Iranian Ocean. I'm like, well, that's just the ocean, isn't it? All of it? I mean, that's pretty crazy. So all this was fascinating, and I was really expecting more from his book than I got, because I was trying to concentrate on one source because there's a ton of video.
Right.
There's a ton of books, and so maybe I just didn't pick quite the right one.
There's a plethora of information out there.
So I got more than halfway through and I quit because I wanted to concentrate on Pine Gap.
Mm-hmm.
I kept hearing Pine Gap reference, but I never knew what they were talking about. So I put the book aside and went to the internet, and I found some pretty straightforward sources, and I found some really fun, off the deep end, cuckoo nutty sources, which makes it interesting. So Pine Gap is the name of the installation that is in Alice Springs, Australia. Alice Springs, if you look at the map, is right smack dab in the center of the continent, which makes some things I'm about to tell you illogical. So I wanted to focus on this because I kept hearing it. I want to know what the significance is. So like other defense installations, Pine Gap is shrouded in mystery and secrecy. It was built in 1967 at the end of Hat Road on the South Stewart Highway. And you can find South Stewart Highway on the Google map. I couldn't locate Hat Road, but I didn't bother typing it in because I had lots to do. They named Hat Road after Edwin Hatt, H-A-T-T, who is an Aussie who designed the facility. Now, they say the place is only half staffed by Americans. The rest are Australians, and there may be some British employees. And I don't know what this acronym is. SIG-INT. The SIG-INT gathering station at Pine Gap is quite possibly one of the most secretive satellite ground installations in the world and one of the largest. Pine Gap gets data from a number of secret satellites, most notably from the satellites that were manufactured under extreme secrecy by TRW Space Systems at Redondo Beach, California. So those satellites there at Pine Gap in Australia are supposedly under control of our CIA and all pointed into deep space. And it's one of the largest group installations in the world. It contains 8 large radomes, extremely large computer room, 20 or so service support buildings. The radomes that cover the large antenna arrays serve 2 purposes. One, to keep the dust and sand off of them and other foreign particles, but also to conceal the antenna's position from enemy spy satellites. They say the computer room is 5,600 square centimeters, and not only are the operators using headsets to talk, but they're using headsets just to talk to each other because they're so far away from each other inside this area. Now, once again, here's a part I don't understand. If this base is underground, 1. 2, smack dab in the middle of landlocked area, from what I could tell on the map, in the middle of the continent. They're saying Pine Gap serves as a submarine refueling station. How in the world is it possible? Now, they're saying Pine Gap has a 1,400-mile-long tunnel to the Northwest Cape where submarines refuel. Now, are they refueling at the Cape or are they refueling at Pine Gap? They're saying it has 9 underground levels and escape tunnel for evacuation. The facility can withstand 3 simultaneous nuclear weapon strikes, and it has the number one nuclear target in that country.
Well, let's think about this for a quick. Let me backtrack here.
Maybe you can make sense of some of that.
So think about it in this terms. You look at this as, wow, that seems just impossible. Why would you have a submarine base in the middle of landlocked area, right? Well,
yes.
Well, then you could flip that script and say, well, why would they? But from
so they're saying there's a tunnel that goes under there's an underground base that has a tunnel that goes even further below it, and then goes this way to the continental shelf.
And audience, I want to point out that Surlana is pointing to me as in going this way. So now we continue.
We're talking about going in other words, vertical than horizontal.
Yeah, there's a horizontal,
and maybe it goes to the continental shelf where it opens up into the water.
It opens up into the water,
and they can just go in there like a big drive-through. Or
exactly. And you mentioned earlier about the Nazi bases.
That's
Germany,
where they got the idea,
and it's exactly where they got the idea, where they park these submarines inside an area where they could work and not be bombed or destroyed.
Interesting.
So
that's a lot of work, though.
It is a lot of work
and money.
But considering that what's at stake in their eyes is out of sight, out of mind. Don't let the public see. Or when you say public, it could be the enemy on the other side or opposing whoever might that be.
But they say not even the Australian Federal Parliament knows what Pine Gap is. Only a few select cabinet members who are, quote unquote, initiated into the knowledge, which makes me wonder what that's all about. Now, another claim says that this is an experimental aircraft testing station or a UFO tracking station. So I was thinking about that. Let's look at where Australia is located on the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's in a good position to track signals and things in the sky.
This goes back to like when they did the Apollo launches. They needed the ability to talk to the astronauts, because they couldn't just get all their signals from America and this side of the planet. So they had to have a base that was on the other side of the world. When I say base, an antenna to pick up the signals from the Apollo missions.
Right.
So you have that early onset of having a base over there.
And wasn't that nice of Australia to let us do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, is that the reason there's this large array there? Because they just have a good positioning on the Earth. They say the locals there in near Pine Gap have seen white discs 30 feet in diameter being unloaded from large U.S. cargo planes at airports that serve Pine Gap. Mm-hmm. These discs, they say, have USAF emblem on them.
United States Air Force.
And they get assembled at Pine Gap, they assume. And they see these discs at night. I don't know if that means in the sky. But now,
by the way, Dennis posted a good picture of Pine Gap.
Yeah.
If you want to go to Twitter and take a look at the picture he posted, it's a nice looking picture.
Okay, just to stop. Sorry, some people are concerned about me. I drink 64 ounces of water a day, Monday through Friday, when I'm at work, and I've been doing that for 2 months. So I don't know how what it add up 64 times 5.
Are they concerned about your health?
I don't know. I got a lot of weird stuff going on, but I will be seeing a doctor, not this week, but next, because for some reason doctors are all busy here in Houston for new patients. So I got a number of things going on I don't understand. So I'm getting it looked at. I don't know what's going on. I'm really dizzy right now. I feel like I'm going to pass out. So, but I haven't yet. I haven't fallen down. Nothing bad's happened. So if it was going to happen, it should have happened by now. Oh, yeah. Anyway, now this section is Pine Gap off the deep end. Now, I went to another source that was kind of kooky.
Yeah.
But these are the ones I enjoy. Now, I might touch on a political personality, but let's keep it neutral in the chats.
Can I do this right?
Yeah.
Spaceboy Universe doesn't proclaim to be left or right of the political spectrum. We appreciate all ideas from everyone. So please keep it politically neutral, and we'll all get along fabulously.
I'm just reading what I saw on a random website. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so this one website is kind of crazy. It goes deep into conspiracy theory about Pine Gap. And for some reason, out of the blue, it says, Hillary Clinton owns financial holdings in major military contractors, Honeywell, Boeing, and Raytheon. And they think Hillary may be a clone herself. And it just starts out like that. And there's no reference to anything that comes after it. Okay. That was just so bizarre. I'm like, what does that have to do with the following content? You know.
So basically, it's like Spaceboy hosts a radio station broadcast, and by the way, he likes peanut butter jelly sandwich. And so now we continue with this broadcast.
Yeah. Well,
so it's kind of like
like
a left field kind of thing.
So once I got past giggling at that. So this source says Pine Gap goes on 5.3 miles into the ground, underground.
Right.
Now, the underground antenna array is there to create giant standing wave fields around the entire planet that play havoc with the inner Earth. Why would they want to do that?
I guess some might go out to the conspiracy theories of HARP. Controlling weather? Could sending signals. Considering that Pine Gap is is an antenna array for signals. I can only imagine.
But what does a standing wave do to the inner Earth? What is that a byproduct, or are they doing that on purpose?
Now that I'd have to look into because I'm not too sure on that. I'm sure I've read somewhere about it, but you brought that up earlier today, and I thought that was, interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out. Sorry, God, there's never a good place for a microphone.
You know what's funny? I got you the boom mic, so
it's attached to the headset, so I wouldn't keep hitting it. There's just no good place for it. It just needs to get away from me. So they're saying Pine Gap, the antenna array there, they use it to monitor all communications on Earth and extraterrestrial. The area around Pine Gap, now this is where it goes, we get a little further out, The area surrounding Pine Gap is a natural dimensional doorway or stargate for incoming crafts. They manage this interdimensional doorway traffic with nuclear-powered UFO guidance system transceivers to direct ships that are flying in a straight line to and from the base. And there are aliens in the base, so they're like an intergalactic airport, So they're saying also Pine Gap has a sister base just like it, and it's in Guam. Guam's base does spaceship repairs, has labs, glass houses, I don't know why they have glass houses, food storage, teleport jump rooms, AI, computer systems on floating platforms, and in this base in Guam. The staff wear color-coded IDs to match markings on the floor that are also color-coded, and you only go where your color code says you can go. And that base is connected via maglev trains, and it links up to Pine Gap, the Philippines, Krugersdorp, South Africa, Amundsen Scott Base in Antarctica. And any communications they get or decipher go straight to NASA's headquarters in Fort Meade, Maryland. And they say Pine Gap is also part of the Triangle for Mind Control, and the other parts of this triangle are located in Alaska and South Africa. I don't know what they mean by that. I didn't have time to look into it. So they're saying that they do mind control experiments there, or they're working on it at these 3 different locations. That's what I'm taking it to mean. And the source says, the prime purpose of Pine Gap is to destroy visitors that come through the dimensional portals throughout the planet. I don't know what they mean by that, but apparently the prime Earth gravity focal points are at Pine Gap, Easter Island, San Diego, Brookhaven Labs in New Jersey, New York area. I don't know what that means.
Brookhaven Laboratories. I've heard
that sounds sinister, doesn't it?
Well, I've heard some stories about that place, and fascinating.
Well, they say that the NSA operates Menwith Hill, which is a UK listening station, which is the exact opposite of Pine Gap. And I don't know if they mean by exact opposite meaning they're doing opposite things, or it means it's a reciprocal location opposite, as in it sits opposite of their location. Now, they're saying the UK listening station has no electromagnetic interference. And what is that? Why is that significant? They say you need electromagnetic interference to manifest computerized time portals to get to Mars created by radio waves. I don't know what that means. So you've got this listening station that's impervious to that, so you can't sneak up on it. And I kind of wonder if this is what John Titor 2 was alluding to. You need this kind of technology to try time travel, maybe?
Probably.
Now, they're saying even China has their space program connected to Pine Gap. And they have a splinter group of highly connected cabal members from China, the EU, and US, have created another project known as Echelon 11, located near the equator. It's not a U.S. government-funded project, but the EU superbloc rises in power. The EU aerospace will come more to the forefront to counter the West. This Echelon 11 will be part of this new development. So now you're getting to New World Order stuff. Yeah, this site just kept going down off the deep end and then get deeper, Now, this site talks about the submarine refueling thing. But I'll just get that real quickly. They're saying, they do have a 14-mile long tunnel, and it's where submarines can travel deep into the interior of Australia and refuel. But why refuel in the middle of a landmass? Is it just because it's more safe and secure?
Well, like I was saying earlier, what a better way to would you expect a submarine in the middle of the desert?
No.
And so what a better way to hide your activities than the unexpected, submarine in the desert, so something like that would be in that order.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is take a break. But before we go, Surlana is going to get the open lines opened, and that reminder is that the number is 844-734-7286. That's 844-734-7286. So let's go to a musical break, and when we come back, those lines will be open for your pleasure to call in. You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU Network. That's SBUnetwork.com. Check it out for exciting shows. And if you want your 1 hour podcast, contact Spaceboy Universe at the SBU Network. Go to that page, and there at the bottom there's the contact information, and maybe we can get you on the SBU Network. So the lines are open. It's 844-734-7286. I've told people in the chat room. I've told people before the beginning of the break, and now we're back.
Excuse me.
So you have some notes. I think we're almost
done.
Yeah, almost done.
All these things I didn't know about Pine Gap also houses nuclear weaponry and can create a nuclear strike itself. So they could launch something from that facility.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a quote. In Australia, there are 3 major bases. Pine Gap is one of them. Now, there's one in South Australia at Nurringer, near Woomera, and another in New South Wales, and it's by the largest is 230 kilometers of the geographical center of the continent, not far from Alice Springs. Pine Gap is at the foot of the southern slopes of the McDonald mountain range, I guess. These other bases that they're in Australia are complementary. They're also completely underground, operated by the Defense Space Research Facility, which I've never heard of. Further secret constructions are still ongoing in and around Pine Gap to this day, with little or no public oversight, and they're saying this is a recipe for disaster for freedom and liberty. So it's strange that you've got Pine Gap, which is a U.S.-run, funded, top secret base in another country. It's officially known as the Joint Defense Space Research Facility. That's the cover, but in reality, they say they've been researching electromagnetic propulsion. So differing reports about what goes on in this Pine Gap. They're saying there's a high voltage plasma accelerator which may be used to transmit an electric current or produce a death ray, which sounds like Tesla stuff to me, or it's a plasma gun. And it's at the base of the West Cape near Exmouth Gulf in the Western Australia. It has an older type of transceiver used at Pine Gap, which is used to send electric currents to submerged U.S. submarines who trail a wire antenna, and I don't even know what that's all about. But
submarines, basically, when a submarine, I'm a big submarine.
Yeah,
fan.
That's your thing.
So when submarines are kind of underwater, it's impossible for them to send a signal or receive signals. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they extend this buoy that has a wire that goes to the surface, and so they don't have to go above. So it allows them to broadcast or to receive messages, and so that's what that is all about.
Interesting. Well, what I concluded from all this is that it seems like some of these superpowers like us, China, seem to all be tied together secretly with some of these bases. Yet some of these countries are supposed to, quote unquote, not be our best friend, mm-hmm. right? On the surface, maybe China's not our best friend right now, but are they actually secretly working together to fend off a different kind of enemy? I mean, or is things like the Cold War and China's disdain of us mm-hmm. just a front, so they can keep their population in line, keep their patriotism up?
You have to really kind of go explore sci-fi in general, and I use Stargate as a good example because later on you had the different countries working together like exploring in the episode with the episodes with the Stargate Atlantis. You had Canadian, you had Russian, mm-hmm. you had the different ones, and then later Chinese came involved in that, and and so it just makes sense that if there's something that's beyond the Earth, like, a threat, as Reagan would say, from beyond the earth, that as a world we would come together to fight a common goal.
And why would he ever say something crazy, so strange like that? It just seems so random and out of the blue. Other he was like trying to tell us something without telling us something.
Mm-hmm.
But
so, so I mean, I can see where you have all these different nations that might have varying points of view that are different from each other, come together to explore and be a part of a cause that globally we were meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like you're saying, if we have a common enemy that we can't fight on our own separately, we have to come together as the human race, not as different countries, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But even at that, that's only going to last so long. Let's say we defeat the enemy, quote unquote. We'll just go back to throwing sticks at each other like we normally do, and I don't think we'll have learned anything. It's not going to turn into Star Trek overnight.
Well, I mean, even with Star Trek, we had a World War III, and then it wasn't, until
we had to go through some terrible suffering to see that it's not all worth it, I guess.
Right, and maybe a lot of people say that the reason why humanity doesn't evolve to the next plane of reality, that humanity, meaning he and she's, would not progress to the next level of enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's, how if you believe in the reincarnation theory of people coming back to relearn or to be able to attain the next level of enlightenment, then, we still have a long way to go.
Yes.
So... Any calls?
No, I did not think. I had 11 pages of typed notes, and I thought I would go all the way to the end and be over.
You did bring up several bases, and there's a lot more. Like, for example, Wright-Patterson didn't come up in this conversation. And in the ufology community, they believe that there are aliens in lower, the Roswell crash.
Mm-hmm.
All the debris and stuff was shipped to Wright-Patterson. And so I believe that, I don't know if it was Wright-Patterson, where Nixon was a good friend of Jackie Gleason.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
And took him to see the aliens or whatever. And Wright-Patterson is a big base out there. And I know maybe Bob and Bev know more about that, and they're... since they're out in Ohio, but that was one base in particular. So,
well, I was focusing on trying to read this book, and I kept thinking, okay, any chapter now it's going to get good. I was like, but it was just all kind of, I don't know. I kind of felt like I was wasting my time with this one book, and I should have done a little bit more. But again, pressed for time because I do have other things I.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not. You did a. Hey,
I do the social media.
Hey, Space Cadets, tell her she did a good job. Give her a hand of applause.
I have to
here.
work 8, from 7 to 4.
You
I gotta help.
You had to put up with me.
I have to help the executive produce another show, plus do research and.
And you do a fine, good job, doesn't she, everyone? Yeah, good. Chime in there. So I guess
I don't need your pity.
We didn't even talk about the moon base, but that's another topic.
Well, it's not underground. That's on another surface.
I would imagine it is underground, so that they can, speculation. I know that we're going to be doing a topic about the moon soon, and that should be fun.
The moon.
Yeah, the moon. Is it made of cheese?
No.
All right, so there you go.
So we're going to end early, or
no? We don't want to end early. We'd hope that somebody wants to call in. Hey, there's James Cruz.
There's James Cruz. Didn't you want to talk to James Cruz?
Yeah, he could call in. In fact, we got his email address, and I've got something lined up to send to him. In fact, let's talk that for a second. James, we've got your email address. We're going to send you something out probably today or tomorrow. Mr. Dino, we have your CD burnt, and we'll make arrangements to get it in the mail as soon as possible. And Karen, if you are listening ever again, we need your contact information so we can send you something super cool. That's, I guess, housekeeping for past shows and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. If we want to send you cool things, but if you don't give us a mailing address, how are you ever going to get it?
And also, the only way you can win cool stuff is to listen to Spaceboy Universe. I mean, that's the only way you can...
Because sometimes we may ask you a question. If you don't know the answer because you weren't listening, you're not going to get anything.
Yeah, so tuning in and... see, look, there's James Cruz. Sweet, thanks, Team SBU. So we like to take care of the Space Cadets, and the only way we can do that is to make sure you're there in the queue and participating and calling. And speaking of calling, you can call, and if you've got a military base thing, okay, yeah, that'd be cool too.
PayPal is the easiest thing in the world. You go in, you get a login, you put in your bank account, and then you just start buying stuff.
Like the Spaceboy music album, Unique Technique, with 17 luscious tracks that you can devour by only paying $10. Yep, $10. That's USA currency. So I don't know what the currency is, conversion and all that. It gets me confused, but I know that for $10 US, you can get the new album. So there's another Spaceboy music plug there, and
and it had some of the music you were playing in the bumps tonight are on there, right?
Oh, indeed.
Some of them, not everyone.
Like the Crash. Interesting thing. You want to tell the audience about that song? Crash.
I don't remember.
That Russian videos.
Oh. It's not even an interesting story.
I like how you just waved me off.
Well, still.
Yeah, so there you go. But yeah, I guess when Surlana fills up to the challenge someday, she'll tell you about how Crash got written. So, but you can call in, talk about a bass that we might have missed off this. Or, if you have some input about the underwater base that we haven't heard in some time about, we'd love to hear a call about that.
I still don't know how they would do that.
Or if you've had 3 cups of wine and you want to call in with your best slurred voice, that would be an optimal time to call in. Let's see here. What else? I can't think of anything else, Surlana. And
I just did not expect this to go
so quickly.
Yeah,
I was trying to pace you, but you when you get on a roll, you're batting the microphone left and right.
Well, if you want to complain about traffic now, it's a great time.
No, I'm beyond traffic. I realize that I have road rage, and I'm trying to work through that.
No, you're not.
You're right. I'm not.
You're not even trying. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, it's Bob. Hey, Bob. I'm glad you called.
Yeah, Bev's still next door.
Yeah.
Couldn't leave you hanging, man.
I appreciate it. Most of the time we have our act together, and then, of course, like I said, Surlana was just bam, 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 and then beating up her microphone. So, I try to slow her down. Yeah. But I appreciate you posted pictures of the buoy that I was talking about, and
no problem.
And then talking about the military base, right Patterson.
He did several posts.
Yeah.
I've heard about them tunnels down there. Mm-hmm. I've heard about them, but of course, never seen them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that used to be the big B-52 area, for the bombers.
I
remember years ago we went by it and you seen just bunches of them on the airfield.
What's some of the stories that you've heard about the base out there?
Just that. Yeah, really, we haven't heard anything too much till about this year. I've been hearing stories about the bases. Supposedly having tunnels underneath and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, in the air, you don't really hear a whole lot, except for being military, and then of course going back to Roswell. and being Hangar 18 and everything, which I always thought was kind of cool.
Bob, I've got to ask.
Ohio.
I've got to ask real quick: is K-28 driving by your house?
No, I don't think he's. I'm on the other side of the state.
We were hearing the train horn in the background. Maybe that's just a soundtrack you have playing.
Yeah. No, I got a train track about 200 feet behind the house.
I loved living by train tracks.
I did too.
Loved hearing the train horn. It was kind of like a comforting. I think it's because my mother grew up right in front of a train tracks, and I guess maybe it's in my DNA. It's just sort of like normal to hear.
Yeah, in fact, when I was a kid...
Yeah, well, I grew up...
I was going to say, when I was a kid, I go ahead, Bob, you take it.
Let him talk.
Yeah, you talk.
I was just saying, growing up in this town, there's just... You got 4 sets of tracks running through the center of town, and we used to own a grain mill that used to sit between the two, so yeah, we could never get away from the trains.
Yeah, I used to live with my grandparents, and they were like a block away from the tracks, and when I would go to school, I'd go over the tracks. We'd put pennies on the tracks to flatten them, and just different things as a kid, growing up. And but yeah, train sounds in the middle of the night are very comforting, and so that background noise is always nice.
Yeah, I grew up in the 60s, and we always heard my grandma and grandpa talking about when the hobos come to the back door and looking for handouts.
A different time, time.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty neat.
So what else is on your mind, Bob? Because usually Bev is taking the mic from you, and it's great for you to call into the universe. So just go at it. Tell us what's on your mind.
Oh, not a whole lot. I really wasn't planning on calling in. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing.
Well, that isn't really nice of you.
I'm trying to behave.
No, we needed it. We were dying here, so.
I know. I was surprised Dino hasn't called in.
Well,
I figured he beat me in.
I think Dino's busy.
Either that, or he's waiting until the after the show call-in thing. So
I thought he had some dental issues and he was kind of in pain.
He was there a minute ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe that was last week.
Yeah, I went next door to get Bev's empties, and I kind of missed some of it. So, but I was hoping Bev would make it back before the show was over.
Well, we still got a little time here.
She's on her last reserve right now.
Yeah. Well, Bob, we appreciate you calling into the universe, and
Oh, no problem. You guys have a great one.
And don't be a stranger. Call more often. Don't let Bev take control of that mic.
It's hard. You'll find out after 30 years. You'll find out. You'll find out.
You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me.
It's all good.
I love you guys.
Oh, we love you too, Bob.
We love you too.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right, bye.
All right. We got another caller?
Yes, we do.
Caller, you're on the air.
How's it going?
Good. Can you hear us?
Cruz.
You're breaking up. Who is this? Who is
James.
this? Hey, Mr.
James.
Cruz. Now, James,
What's up?
when you call in twice, it doesn't mean you get another gift. I mean,
oh man!
But as I will say this,
I hear free stuff.
Well, as things go on, we have a secret little club called the Stuff at SpaceboyUniverse.com. That's Stuff at SpaceboyUniverse.com, where we monitor and track all our space cadets, and randomly. And randomly, we do pass out some things, that hey, we saw this, and we will make arrangements to get it to you. So, yeah, we've been a little bit behind the curve lately on getting stuff out, and so finally, I told Surlana tonight. I said, "Hey, we need to get this out today, and no later than tomorrow to Mr. Cruz and to Dino, and because we've made it's just cool stuff. We just want to make sure you're taken care of. We want to be the channel that when we tell you we're going to do something." Well, we'll get to it.
Eventually, we'll do it. But
we'll get to it.
So what's on your mind?
Well, as far as military bases, my brother's in the Air Force, and he lived out in Cheyenne, Wyoming there in the missile defense program. He's lived in multiple areas that, stuff like that was conducted, like Vandenberg, California, like, I mean, underground stuff. I don't know about interconnecting things, but he's had some pretty cool stories about the silo stuff and how it all works. And at a flick of a button, you can send up Trident nukes, like, and how it all worked. And with the, they have these, these covers that go over the top of them, and they basically have rockets on top of those, and it blasts it off like miles and miles out into the desert,
Right.
And they launch those things out. But he did all the heating and air conditioning electrical components on these missile silos. That's what he was responsible for.
Yeah,
but,
it was like
that's my cool underground base story. And another crazy part of that is, I don't know if you remember, like a year ago, where all those dudes got busted for like being on drugs and all that stuff, and it was the same exact base.
Wow.
Granted, my brother doesn't live there, hasn't lived there in like almost 10 years, but there was like a crazy like underground, like none of the guys could pass any of their tests and this and that. It was like just a cluster up in this base there. But
yeah, that reminds me of
thought.
of the story of and it might, I don't know how old you are, James, but there was this
almost 40.
Okay, so you're close enough to maybe remember the story about that silo that exploded somewhere out in there's a new video out there, and I just really hate when I get a brain fart like this, because I was going through. I think I have more pleasure watching trailers than I do actually watching the actual movie.
They're usually better than the movie.
But this one was about the nuke that exploded, and I don't know if it went nuclear, but I know that the missile itself exploded, and I'm sure somebody will ring in on this, but it looks fascinating. It's history related, and it would have been the first time that if the nuke had exploded, that we had exploded a nuke on American soil in the way that they were describing. I just found it very fascinating, its history, and at some point somebody will share that with us. But anyway, I blab on too much. But other than that, you doing okay, James? I mean, life treating you well?
Life's good. It's cold, snowing, if you're in Northeast Ohio.
Mm-hmm. See, we got.
Oh, another thing I saw today that was kind of cool. When I was calling in, I just thought of it, was the SpaceX Hyperloop Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
You guys see that?
Did you happen to see that?
It sounds like something that they wanted to make like transcontinental at one point.
Remember that? I think I posted this on Facebook, where a map of the whole globe and the Hyperloop. Doesn't ring a bell?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that maybe I saw it on a Twitter too. Then okay.
If you want to go explain,
how
go ahead
you
and
could
explain
get anywhere in a couple hours.
Yeah, they were talking.
Okay.
Go from one side of the planet to another side of the planet in a couple of hours. I think I saw on the diagram Houston was a part of that trip through there. Fascinating. That would be great, to be able to, travel like that. But it goes back to the underground tunnels that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
How these tunnels and here's a book I'm going to recommend.
They already have the technology.
It's called Unknown Highway by Anthony Sanchez, that talks about this very subject about these tunnels and being able to speed through, and a majority of these tunnels that we know of are here in the Southwest United States. But the Hyperloop, it's kind of like one of those things where you have, I guess, unknown to the public, but to the military, and you have all this technology, and then eventually they, just like they disseminate that information to corporations to build it for commercial use. So I can imagine
that makes sense.
Yeah, where the Hyperloop of the future Yeah, in fact, I believe Dennis,
Already exists.
Yeah, Dennis just posted the thing on the SBU about that. But yeah, it's fascinating. I would love to be able to go have lunch in Tokyo and then come back within, several hours. That would be kind of really cool and rad.
Yeah, it'd be way like I'd finally get to see England, but not have to stay overnight.
Yeah, or fly, so many hours in a plane to get there. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the future, the topic for another show, but VR capable stuff. You're talking about going somewhere. Yeah,
right.
That's gonna be next level for sure.
Okay.
Because the way that you can. But yeah, next show.
Well, VR would definitely be on our list of things to do.
Underground bases are always fun.
Well, James, thanks for calling, and like I said, we're going to get you hooked up within the next 24 hours with the gift that we promised, and just make sure we'll make sure that you get it, and have you check your junk mail just in case it goes into your junk mail, and go from there.
Thank you. I'll be looking forward to the fuzzy dice.
All right. Thanks, James.
Bye, James.
Bye.
Bye. Now, I know that we have another caller on the air. Who is it?
They said they only have 8%
well,
sell.
Then that can only be the one and only K28.
Yeah, how did you know?
Kay, how are you tonight? Or did he already go to 0?
He should be there.
K28. I see 765. You know what? Let's go ahead and take our break, and we'll get K28 patched in. And here is the song Unique Technique from the album Unique Technique on the spaceboymusic.com that you can get. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and the lovely Surlana. And on the phone we have K28. How are you, K?
I'm fine. How's everybody doing?
We're awesome. What about you, Surlana? Are you okay over there now?
Not really, but that's not anyone's problem but mine. It's not due to Kay.
More hacking.
So what's on your mind, Kay?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw what I typed into the chat, but I was saying that back in the 60s, as a young kid, me, my brother, and a cousin, me and my brother used to frequent our cousin's house. And when the adults weren't working, we used to sneak down the stairs in the back of the yard to this tunnel that who knows where it led to, but we used to call it like the Bat Cave, right? And so we would venture down in there as far as we can when there's daylight, because we didn't have any flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
And it was full of rusted metal and some other weird, disgusting looking things decaying in there. And as far as the eye could see, it just disappeared off into the distance. And because you were talking about tunnels and stuff under the city, and so we always thought that it led to some secret base somewhere. It's right across the property from an old Lloyd Wright designed house. The son of the famous Frank Lloyd Wright.
Right.
Yeah, there. Anyway, that's just still there now, the historical monument. But we never found out where those tunnels went, because we were little kids, right? 6 or 7 years old,
right?
And we didn't want to get stuck in there and nobody know where we were, because if the parents thought we were down there, we would get beaten.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it reminds me of living in San Antonio, and there's some major drainage pipes that are there where I used to live, and my cousin and I, we would make these makeshift light lanterns and go exploring down, a good mile and a half of tunnels, and end up into the basin. And so what kids do, it's amazing that we're still alive, what we would do. But your situation is fascinating in the sense that y'all didn't, you went to a certain point and the tunnels just kept on going beyond that?
Yeah. Where this house was is in the Hollywood Hills, right underneath the Griffith Observatory. I don't know if you're familiar with that structure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a famous landmark in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see right from the backyard. It's less than a mile away, straight up the mountainside. And so maybe it's coincidence that some astronomical observatory is in line with this tunnel. So who knows why and who went up and down these tunnels, and why did it? Why was my cousin's house part of it? I have no idea.
Well, I'm reminded of a story of some of those tunnels. I've heard of tunnels that connect to different Hollywood residents, dating back to like Earl Flynn, where they would go to have these secretive parties, and they would, have these connected tunnel systems. So I'd be curious to know if that might be relating to the tunnels that you experienced as a child, during your childhood.
Yeah, it looked definitely abandoned for who knows how long. Everything was rusted that we could see.
Mm-hmm.
We had to step around, things running along the ground. I don't know if there were rats or something, but because it was completely dark except for whatever sunlight happened to be reflected off the walls, right? And I saw some what looked like to be old storage shelves, but the bare metal ones, though, it didn't have any decorative stuff on it, and there was nothing on the shelves. It just left there, looked like for 30 or 40 years of no one going in there. And there were spider webs all over the place, and like I said, there's things running along the ground. You don't know what those things are, so I
guess
have no idea.
Better not to know what's on the ground than to know, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt along the edge of the shelves, and there's the rust is probably at least 2 inches thick, because you know how rust makes ridges.
Yeah.
And they turn they look like raindrops hanging off of there, but they're actually rust drops, I guess, right?
Right.
And so the rust just almost like inside a stalactite cave, right? But it's actual rust. So that's how long this thing's been decaying for those things to be 2 inches long. So.
Wow, fascinating. Wow. And how big was these cave tunnel systems? I mean, were they? I mean, compared to your height at that age, I mean, would a normal, say somebody that was at least 6 foot be able to stand upright, or was
yeah, these are towering over us. Maybe, if I try to remember, maybe 10 feet high.
Oh, okay.
And width-wise, it was me, my friend, and my cousin. We were all side by side, and we still had clearance on either side of us. So at least 3 kids wide, maybe four or 5 kids wide. So maybe 3 adults side by side could fit in there. So that wide, and then maybe 10 feet tall. And they were kind of made out of, I guess, a brick or something like that. I think, because I remember there's a shape to them, like rectangular blocks or whatever. I'm not really sure what was holding those things together, but that's what it reminded me of. And they're kind of a darkish brown or something. I don't know. It was kind of hard to tell the actual color because it's in whatever reflected sunlight's in there, so I couldn't really tell. Maybe the metal reflected off of it too.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it wasn't any bright color whatsoever, and there might have been coatings of moss and stuff on it too after all those years. So, but it was definitely dark in there.
Well, yeah, like I said, Hollywood, 30s and 40s was a happening town, and you could be anywhere from Hollywood royalty going back and forth to different houses to actors or I guess I'm going to say actors. I can't imagine an actress keeping the version of a mistress, but and then you talking about maybe then again who knows. And then you talk about bootlegging, alcohol, so different things that these tunnels could have been used for during that time in Hollywood, crazy times. Well, but
it was definitely going down toward the direction of the Lloyd House, and Lloyd Wright made very unique, one of a kind architecture things. So I imagine you have to be well-to-do in order to be in that house.
Well, yeah, I imagine you would. Anything you want to add to that, Surlana?
Well, when he first started describing a tunnel, I thought, well, there's a great time to get your tetanus shot on. That's just really interesting. I thought when he was saying, I wonder if there's like a story there, like you said, like with Griffith's Observatory, and maybe it's on some kind of natural, what they would call ley lines, which are more kind of mystical, and maybe there's more of a story there than anybody knows that we could be digging into.
I said, what I said about the tunnels, I didn't even think about the secret societies using them to go back and forth to different things. That's to be out of sight, out of mind. Once again, it's out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
If you don't see it, you can't get upset about it.
Did we lose you, Kay?
It went dead quiet there.
No, I'm here.
Okay, we did. So, but other than that, we want to bring out the fact that this coming Monday is a special day for you, and it's your birthday.
Yes.
So, here's a pre-happy birthday to you, K28. Of course, we'll make sure to brag about you, and I'm sure Surlana will post something out there. See, she's already.
I just tweeted something at you, Kay.
But
okay, I'll take a look.
Once again, we think the world of you, and we appreciate you. It goes beyond Spaceboy Universe and Spaceboy Music. You've been just a wonderful person in our life, and we thank you. And I can't think of a better person to say happy birthday on the air than yourself.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Did you want to add in?
Also, here's a shout out to Michelle. I hope she gets better.
Oh, indeed, yes.
That's it.
All right. Well,
Thanks a lot.
okay. We appreciate you calling in, and I guess we'll talk to you out there anytime outside the universe.
I will. Bucky's.
Bucky's. All right. Good night, Kay.
Bye, Kay.
Thank you. Bye.
He needs stock in that.
I'm telling you, he's overly fascinated with a place he's never been to.
Yeah, we'll have to get him hooked up with some swag from Bucky's and plan a trip. I wouldn't mind going to a Bucky's.
Oh, there's one up at Cypress. I just looked.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not as far. The other closest one would be Pearland, but that's a little further than Cypress.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else on the phone, or are we good there?
Yeah, there is. Hold on.
All right. Call
Ouch.
Yeah, I figured this might be Dino.
That hurt my ear. Good evening, everybody.
Are you doing okay now, Dino?
Wishes. Oh, yeah. I took really good care of myself, missed 2 days of work, ate garlic, drank lots of herb or tea, and peed a lot, and, rested, and came back. But this virus or whatever is going around, people have to be careful. And so I wish good health to everybody. But, part of good health is keeping your immune system up, and that means plenty of rest, and it means, eating healthy. You can't be smoking all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't be drinking all the time. You got to do as God intended us. You got to take care of our bodies. That being said, interesting topic. Happy birthday to our last caller there, and that is, I'd like to know more about the tunnels and in Hollywood. I mean, that's an amazing story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the topic here, I read both of Dr. Sauter's books. They were about 7 or 8 years ago, though. I just happened to pick them up at an old Tower Records, I think.
Cool.
And fascinating. The first one was Secret Underground Bases, and then the follow-up book was Secret Underwater Bases. And the underground bases was an eye-opener for me, in spite of the fact that, well, I'll get into that later about the Presidio, but I know that that this Dr. Sauter had done research, and I knew that it wasn't BS because he went to Freedom of Information Act and he got documents, and in his book, and it's been printed on the internet, you can see pictures of the boring machines.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big companies is a company headquartered in San Francisco called Bush. What are they called now? They're called. I was just going to say it. I had to eat before I called, and I'd only eaten once today. You feel healthy again. You get out and start doing things. It starts with a B. Starts with, you guys fill in. Bushnell? No, not Bushnell.
What's he talking about?
Bechtel.
Bechtel. Yes,
Corporation.
Bechtel.
Yes, and Bechtel is they do major construction sites all around the world. And Bechtel, when I had spoken to people years ago when I was looking for jobs, everybody said, you don't want to work at Bechtel. They're very uptight. They're very concerned about dress code. And now years later, 20 years later, it makes sense to me if they have government contracts or if they have to do some sub rosa type of work. They don't want people there that are free thinkers. They want people that are afraid for their job, follow the thing, don't ask questions, and just do their job. So Bechtel had a picture in his book, and you can see it on the internet. It's been posted on YouTube and all, of about 20 guys, some of them in hard hats, some of them in suits, smiling as they look up, and here's one of the boring machines, which is as large as a train car, and they were supposedly mounted on train cars, so you could lay tracks underground, and they had triple, probably diamond, titanium grinding heads. But he said in his second book, this is old technology. This was stuff they had in the 60s. Now, as you did very good research, Surlana, they have nuclear powered, and they have super heated tips, almost like when you're soldering, and they melt through solid rock, and they deposit the liquid rock into the cracks and fissures as they move forward. So once I heard that, I said, well, this has got to be real. Then they can go, it sounds amazing, a mile, a half mile underground. And then the other thing, they said that you can find these bases, the good doctor said, by ventilation shafts, because we think of it as being cold. Like, it's very cold now where I live. I know I'm a wimp, but it's been damp and cold here up on the hill. And as you go that deep underground, it actually gets warmer when you're a mile underground, because there's no wind, no convection, no radiation, I guess, unless it's from down below the earth, core. And it actually can get too warm there, and they need air conditioning so people can function and breathe. So that being said, what's going on underground? Well, what's going on is that one of the most secure places you can have is to be underground or underwater, which I'll address in a minute. You go underground, you have only one or two entrances, and you know that that's your choke point, and nobody else is going to be able to hear, surveil, or invade your underground base.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why. And then when you go back in time in history, you find that, yes, people did go to the caves for security or to disappear. And then when you go back to World War II, they just had a PBS special on this a few months ago. The Nazis, when they took over France, one of the first things they did was they got slave labor from the captured people, and they built underground. Their U-boat base was in, I forget the name of the city, but it's history. It's there now. And you can still tour it. Mm-hmm. So 60, 70 years later, it was built with, they did it with concrete supposedly, but, like concrete that could take a direct hit from all kinds of bombs. And these submarines could go in, out of the sea, get retrofitted, get armed, and go out again, and they could be secure while they were doing this because no bomb could penetrate. And Allied Secret Service finally found out about this base, and they came into, that's a whole other subject, but about ways to try to destroy it. And I think they developed these skipping bombs and all, but they never were able to do enough damage to shut that base down. Now, that's just something that was done with conventional digging and pouring, 12-foot walls of concrete and 12-foot ceilings. So with our technology nowadays and what we supposedly have, then I read the second book by Dr. Sauter about underwater. And I said, now, wait a minute, because I lived right at the beach for 25 years. And I go, the Pacific Ocean, how can they do this? And then he goes on to show that there is a company that makes these collars, and they're metal collars that can attach to the bottom or top of submarines. And guess what? They are universal. In other words, the dimensions of them are such that they can be plugged in anywhere. And they supposedly are for submarine escape in an emergency. cough button. To get the to get the personnel out of the submarine. But it ends up that he said that these underwater bases have a collar that'll bolt right up to them, so that our submarines can go undetected underwater, hook up, and people can climb in and out of the submarines to these secret underwater bases. So how about that?
That's on par with all the research I was finding.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is that these are not a fantasy. I mean, many of us here in the audience and you guys, we've researched for several years aerial phenomena, underwater phenomena that's unidentified, at least to us. As that was said many times, the U.S. military at the top level, it's not unidentified to them. They know exactly what they are, but they're just not telling.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
Exactly. So then this is a different case. This is a step toward disclosure in the fact that these documents have revealed that we have the technology to bore these tunnels up to, he claims, 30 feet in diameter in one pass. So that deals away with the tailings and the grindings that you would have to dump somewhere, which on land people might be suspicious of.
Right,
He
exactly.
said that at least in the underground bases, that if you think one is being built near you, the thing to look for is a current underground project that's a civil works, like a subway or a garage or something that's being excavated. And he goes, then they can put the tailings, if they have the old-fashioned boring grinding machine, they can put it out or have dump trucks remove it at the same time that these other construction projects are going on. So that's one way they covered their tracks. Because the material has to go somewhere. When you're boring underground, you can't just put it aside. This is solid rock sometimes they're boring in. So, that being said, we know that these must be there. Jesse Ventura's talked about him. He was a naval, he had some security clearance. He was a Navy SEAL. Other people have talked about him. We already know that if you watch Stargate SG-1, that the base facade that they use is Cheyenne Mountain, and that is already admitted that it is an underground base that you enter through.
Yeah, we talked about
supposedly and supposedly, as you said, it was the old headquarters of NORAD, this defense command, but supposedly they've reopened it again, and they're doing something down there. And Dr. Sauter, I think, talked in one of his books about he was calling for information about something from one government agency or another, and he got a very friendly woman on there, and he was talking. He says, yeah, I'm doing research for a book, blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh, she goes, I'm underground now where I work. She admitted it, you know. So there are probably hundreds of these, not only in the United States, but throughout the world.
There are. There's at least over 200. And we do have another caller. I don't know if the caller is already on the line, if they want to just jump in, because we're getting down to the 5-minute wire.
Oh, I'm just chicken liver. No, I'll go. You were begging for me to call earlier.
We were.
We were, yeah.
I was eating. I had to eat. No, I'll go off if you want. I had more to say, but that's okay. I think we're the caller. Who's the caller? Someone that's going to talk about chickens or what?
I don't know. Are you there, other caller?
Yes, I'm here.
Yay, it's Ty.
How's it going?
It's going great. How about you, Ty?
Really good. Thank you very much. I had a comment or a question about these tunnels.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, how do they maintain them? I mean, since they're so vast and rigid cement, during earthquakes, wouldn't earthquakes disturb them?
See, that was my thought, too, about...
I have no idea.
Because of Elon Musk trying to create his own tunnel because he's a super evil genius kind of thing. But I can only imagine... Well, it's like this. I'm going to apply, and I'm sure some of our military people can validate this, is that let's take an aircraft carrier. They maintain that because they have people going over the going over different parts of the ship, making sure that it's optimally ready for when they need it, when war breaks out. So I can only imagine that if these underground tunnels are being ran by military, that they're going through the process of looking through the tunnels, seeing where there's fatigue in the structural parts and making sure that they're functional. And of course, if there's an earthquake, then I'm sure they go in, and if they have to, they've got tools necessary to repair those things. So it would be an ongoing process. That's my theory, at least, on it.
I think that if I could add to this, I think what happens is before they go down, they check the geological, underpinnings, because they do have maps and techniques and ground surveys. So when you're building these things, many of them are built in solid rock, and they're honeycombed. And I think that the engineers know what they're doing by now. And all you have to do is look back to ancient Rome. There are catacombs that go under that city that have been there for centuries. And there are a lot of earthquakes in the Italian peninsula. So an earthquake wouldn't necessarily take these out or make them collapse, because that's what I thought, especially underwater. But if you go deep enough down in the ocean, it's not just sand and water dripping through. This is below all that. And so structurally, they can withstand that.
I was also thinking about continental drift. Because if you have rail going hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, wouldn't even just 2 inches of drift or a couple of centimeters of drift, sorry, yeah, inches. You guys are American.
You know it, eh?
Wouldn't that cause a lot of problems?
Well, I was going to say I was reminded of the airport that they did in Japan, where they built that island for their airport. The airport is actually sinking, so they have the main part of the airport on some kind of stilts. So every periodically they have to raise it up to compensate for.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. But I guess that would be kind of a similar situation that when you have something so massive or something so big that yeah, sure, you're going to have the Earth make changes in itself because the Earth is dynamic. It's moving. It's shifting. So you have these different technologies that monitor drift or even sinkage or earthquakes for that matter, so that they can compensate for that. That's once again, that's my thought. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say, in addition to that, they're not going to build these things. They're going to do some research first, and they're not going to build them on a fault line or on a subduction plate. I mean, these things, some of them are pretty large, but a plate, for example, out in the Pacific Ocean is tens of thousands of miles wide. They're not going to build it. So if you're on that plate, it might move, but not every railroad track moves in an earthquake event. And as someone who's lived in an earthquake area all my life, there are buildings that can stay for years. If you build something, and again, this isn't building, this is in solid ground, and you build it where it's reinforced, and it's not somewhere where there is a vein or a subduction or where water runs through the structure, it's going to move with everything, just like any high-rise that's around today. Most of them don't sink that much that it would be a problem, except the new one they built in San Francisco that they didn't put the tiers down. It's called the Millennial Tower. They didn't dig down deep enough to hit bedrock when they built it.
Well, and I was going to point out the military base, or the military, NORAD, the actual building was built inside the mountain, but that particular building was actually built on springs. So you can imagine these big springs supporting this building, and it was made that way so in case if there was an earthquake or the shock of a nuclear attack on the mountain itself would not disintegrate everything that was inside, because it had flexibility to move around. So if you can imagine Cheyenne Mountain on springs, I'm sure that the technology that they're using for these various tunnels and other military underground bases, they're compensating for Earth's interference in something like that.
This clip of the Texas bucket list is brought.
Why does it do this to me? Sorry. God, why do they do that?
It's even more low tech than that. They use rollers. They're not only on skyscrapers, but they use them here. I mean, anywhere in L.A., San Francisco, many of the new buildings are actually built on rollers, so that the structure doesn't take the movement, but the rollers do.
I know a building in Vancouver where the building is actually hanging. It's suspended from a structure, so that if there's an earthquake, the building can sway.
Yeah. There are a lot of the Japanese buildings built on some kind of ball bearing, so they just sort of move around. They're not like permanently attached.
Well, you get a lot of buildings built like that, over high, activity as far as earthquakes are concerned, since they are considered on the Ring of Fire. Look it up.
I know what it means. It's active. It's an active ring.
I wasn't talking about taco night, when I'm having my jalapenos and stuff like that.
Or Johnny Cash.
Exactly. So
we're having tacos next week.
Yeah. So she's ecstatic. Hashtag she's ecstatic. So, but yeah, they have different buildings and to compensate for sway. And there was one, and I was trying to think of this one building that actually rotates. and they were having a problem with it. Man, what was the documentary I was watching on that one? But anyway, long story short is that they had to put in some kind of special ball bearing system in order for the building to turn around to see this pan. I think it was in Glasgow, and because the winds are so rough at this location, and it was an interesting documentary. I watch so much stuff; it's hard to category, keep track of everything. But yeah, that was just an example of trying to compensate for Mother Nature.
Well, space, one thing we haven't even touched on tonight is with reference to the underground bases and the security there. We haven't even touched on the fact, well, maybe a fact, at least of what we know, that they may be able to go in and out of these bases through a transporter technology. You wouldn't even need a formal, door entrance a mile underground. You could just beam people down. And we already know that scientists a couple of years ago, it was actually announced in mainstream media that they were able to transport, a la Star Trek transporter, molecules across a room. Mm-hmm. So, again, if we believe that there is hidden technology, that we're not being told the truth, and most of us, the 99.9%, then the technology could be used to transfer tools, people, food, all kinds of stuff underground, and it would be the ultimate 99.9% security, and you would never know about these bases.
That's why on sci-fi related shows, like for example Stargate, if we're not being fed information in an indirect way, that maybe we do have something that's similar to like Stargate technology, where it's warping space, time, and being able to just walk through a portal of some kind into another, another space and time. And when I say space and time, meaning that, I'm not talking about time travel per se, but, to be able to walk through a hole in the fabric of space and time, once again, to another part or wherever we need to go.
The transportation that they did in the lab was basically transferring the information of the object, and then it would rematerialize the information and gather up the atoms that it needed for that information and recreate the object, the molecule or the atoms.
Well, I know
that's what I'm talking about.
I know on that experiment, it was very basic, but it does give credence to the possibility of transportation, just like out of Star Trek, and so something to look forward to. But like I said, the Stargate program might be telling us a partial truth of maybe what's going on out there.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But I do believe there are a lot of things that I'm still waiting, because I'm a bit skeptical on from all the information about the hidden truth and the disclosure movement. But I do believe that there are underground bases, that there are more of them than we know, and I do believe there's technology that keeps people very comfortable there. Now, personally, humans are very adaptable, but I don't think I could live down there. I don't like being too far underground. It'd be nice to have a house if you lived in the desert or the high mountains, where maybe you were in, but maybe I'd have a picture window looking out at the valley. That I could stand, being underground. But these are bases that you're looking at. I'm sure psychologically they've made them nice with different warm colors and maybe sculpture, and they try to make them interesting. But for me, I would get psychologically claustrophobic. But for people that do this, or if they're military, for example, I could never go down in a submarine, but there are people that do this for months at a time, and it's just part of their lifestyle, and they adapt to it. So I think that right now, as we're speaking, there are people doing various top-secret things at various places around our country in America, and probably Canada, and I don't know about Mexico. They don't even want to build a wall, so I don't know about building underground bases. But
building tunnels.
Yes, but they are good with tunnels.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any other questions there, Ty?
No, I think that clears it up pretty well for me. I think my question's been answered, and thank you very much, Dino, for your comments. And it's getting past that time, so I'll thank you for taking my call.
Always.
And love you guys. I'm going to be downloading your album, Spaceboy, tonight, and I'm looking forward to listening to the whole thing.
Well, cool. Let me know what you think.
I will, as soon as I listen to them all. I think I may already have my favorites from what you've played already. But, yeah, I'll definitely let you know. And I'll just say goodnight to all the Space Cadets. And you guys have a great evening.
Well, it was nice talking with you, and you sound very sophisticated.
Thank you, Ty.
Well, thank you very much, Dino.
For a Canadian. No.
Now, Dino.
Dino, behave yourself.
Okay, you guys take care, eh?
Okay.
Good night.
Bye, Ty.
Good night.
Good night. So, Dino.
Yes.
Did you want to hang around as we close the show down and?
No, I don't need to unless you had any more questions for me because this was an area of something I'd done some research in as well. So, the final thing I did want to say, if I could.
Well, go ahead.
Well, San Francisco Presidio, we had a guy that we've all heard. I read one of his books, and his name is he's from the San Francisco area. And you know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
Brad Olson. And Brad, on his site, has a video he made walking around the decommissioned military base, the Presidio. And even though I had explored parts of it, I was not aware how much apparently there is underground there as well, right within the city of San Francisco. And no one ever knew. And in fact, we never even knew that they had at least one nuclear missile on that base.
Makes sense.
All during the Cold War. Well, we didn't know at the time. Everybody thought, they won't bomb San Francisco during the Cold War. They'll probably be going after, all the Air Force bases up by Sacramento. But indeed, there were rumors, they never confirmed, but people I heard that worked on the base and all, that there were warheads there. They call them arrows, that they had an arrow underground at the Presidio of San Francisco. So anyway, enough of the underground bases. It's been an interesting topic. We should do it again.
Oh, most definitely.
There's plenty of content there.
And thanks for calling into the universe.
Thank you. Good night, all you all you space cadets. Bye.
He needs to stop drinking that vino.
Yeah, Dino, lay off the vino.
So, look, in the immortal words of Barry Manilow, it looks like we made it. So, final thoughts, Surlana?
This is a huge topic. We could probably pick, like you say, Wright-Patterson, pick one base or two bases and to cover that over the 3 hours. It's something I think I'm not going to just research it and then let it lay. I will probably keep looking into it from time to time. And there's some other books I need to read for some of the other upcoming shows. But I think that'll all tie together. It's something that we all need to keep an eye on, because it's one thing if they're just doing this for our safety, if they're keeping things safe locations so they can keep track of missiles or things like that, or if they're developing new weapons and craft for our defense to keep us safe. But I just feel like there's maybe more going on, and they're getting away with it because, one, we don't know where it is and we don't know how to get to it, and we can't prove it definitively. Exactly.
So, I mean, the only way you can, it's like when we were talking earlier at the beginning of the program, probably the best way to find out is that, if you're looking at the left hand, you need to see what the right hand's doing. And what I mean by that is, where's the money flowing? I mean, think about what it takes to support something that huge and that massive. So, as far as that's concerned, follow the money trail, follow the patents. If you're really seeking out the truth, and
follow your research.
It always seems to go back to what Jim Morris says. is don't take my word for it. Find the truth for yourself. So, you know there's bases there. Go beyond what you see and just dig and go from there.
I said I still wanted to find that woman's video, but I know we're going over time here. Yeah. But if I ever find it again in my history,
well, that's like me with the that video I saw today of the nuclear missile that went I don't think the warhead went off.
Catherine Austin, I believe that's her. Catherine Austin. Mm-hmm. She has a good. There it is. She's speaking at the Secret Space Program Conference 2014 in San Mateo. Try to check that one out. Catherine Austin Fitz.
All right. So, like you said, we're a little over time, but before we go, we like to do a little housekeeping.
Yeah, but you're not going to tell anybody, are you?
That is right. The next guest will be disclosed, I guess, Monday or maybe Sunday night-ish.
Yeah.
And we just want to make sure that we have,
Can we reveal his general location?
Well, yeah, he's a Texan. It's a he, so there's 2 clues right there.
It's a local favorite, maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
Local to Texas,
local
or
to
general,
Texas for us,
And he sees this is somebody that's known.
Yeah, and but I mean, I know that the only thing I'll give away for the next lineup for the next 4 weeks, because that's how we do it here at the SBU for our site, is the Linda program that we had originally scheduled for last week has been rescheduled for the 25th of February. So we'll be talking about her on that day and talking about stories and just a little bit about Linda herself and like
just some of the top fascinating stories. Just one of them I started researching. I was feeling really strongly about it, so that'll be a good thing too. And then the other is my favorite. That reads like a Lovecraft story, So
yeah. So, but as far as next week's guest, I guess you'll just have to tune in.
And then the week after that.
Yeah, and so we're gonna
sit on that one too.
Yeah, we're sitting on that one, so you'll know coming up soon what our schedule is for this next 4 weeks. And late Sunday night, it should go up onto the SB
Universe website.
Universe website.
I was working on the website before I came in here.
Anything else you need to add to this, Surlana?
We will continue to update on the progress of the build. For our Blarglefish from Baytown for the First in Texas Robotics Competition.
And I butchered that name, and I apologize.
Well, you're sitting in front of a symbol of butchering names. His Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka poster. So
Blarglefish.
Blarglefish. It's B-A-R, not B-L-O.
Blargle.
Blarglefish.
Blargle.
Yeah.
Blargle.
Yes.
Okay.
Blarglefish. That is their team name, 1255 Blarglefish. And it's something we believe in. They've got teams all around the world. If you've got, I think, a young grade school kid to high school, it's a great way to get them involved in something, and they don't have to know how to program or build robots. You'll be taught that if your kid's interested, or they can find another aspect to get into with marketing, or like Jim said. So it's something great for kids to be involved in. I think K28 actually had one of his children involved in it for years, and he'd gone to those, so he could speak to that too. So definitely, if you don't have a kid but you still want to support, you can always find a local team and see how you can help out, donate money, volunteer at their competitions, provide food, retweet and get excited, do their social media. Yeah, his FRC Robodocs, yeah.
And just quickly to respond to Gigi Rabbit's question of when are Spaceboy's other shows, well, it's the SBU Network. So if you go to sbunetwork.com, that'll give you all the shows that we do, which is Spaceboy Music, Spaceboy Universe, and then, of course, we produce the show for Reverend John Polk, Quantum Hologram Matrix. And so that will give you times and when you can tune in. And just go to that site, and that's SBUnetwork.com. So, but beyond that, that should cover everything, right, Surlana?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so say goodnight, Surlana.
It's about time.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Surlana. Executive producer is Surlana. Producer credit goes out to Dennis Koch. Find Spaceboy at spaceboymusic.com and spaceboyuniverse.com. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. You have reached your final destination. Good night, Space Cadets.